Hello, welcome along. Exciting times here on GCN Racing. We are live line to line today for the Elite Women's Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Dani, Rowe is back with me again to take us through the action. Dani, this is a race that I know you've done. For many purists out there, racing really starts with the cobblestones.
It really does, and I'm so excited to be here today alongside your fine self to commentate on this women's race. It's really going in the right direction with women's cycling, and the coverage is fantastic. And like you said, this is the first real classic of the season. Everyone's going to be nervous, looking at each other, and this is one of my favourite races.
All right, so last year's race was won by Chantal Black. Let's have a look at the route that the riders are going to tackle today. It's 122.9 kilometres in length. And Dani, we head out of Ghent and we've got the first cobblestone section is the Haaghoek, which comes at 38.9 kilometres covered. Then we go on to the Routestraat, the Kirkgates, and then we're getting into these climbs, the Leeberg, the Wolvenberg, the Molenberg, coming quite fast succession in the middle, and then they're quite weighted towards the iconic climbs, the Muur and the Bosberg at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we'll see quite a steady start. Although people will be nervous, they will be thinking about those climbs and cobbles at the end of the race, and they do come in quick succession. And we do normally see this race split to pieces. It's all about positioning, and I think there'll be a lot of nerves going into the first cobbled section. That is ultimately where the race starts. There's some new teams, new riders, compositions, so that'll also be really interesting to see how the riders are working together today, and that is going to be one of the key points of this race.
And in terms of the looking, we've been kind of keeping an eye on the wind because it's quite, we could say the weather's pretty grisly in Europe at the moment, and very windy as well. And the wind kind of, watching the wind maps, it's kind of shifted in the sort of last hour or so as well. So we're almost going to have sort of a sort of cross headwind heading out of Ghent and then into the sort of middle part of that course that we saw on the map there where we loop around. Do you think that might cause a few issues today?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why the European riders tend to fare better in these sort of conditions. They'll be rubbing their hands together, looking at the course, keeping an eye on the wind. They'll have their directors in their ears telling them of any changes that might occur throughout the race, and see where some of these teams can really benefit from the crosswinds. The riders that know how to ride in those winds, the likes of Chantal Black, Lorena Wiebes, and yeah, I think that will play a huge factor today. It looks wet, windy, classic weather, and that will play a big part. Some riders favour these sort of weather conditions and others don't. A big part of it is mind games as well. I think if you can really embrace this weather, then you're already winning, unless you're thinking, oh no, it's raining and cold, wet and windy, you're already defeated. So I think that'll play a big part in it today too.
And in terms of those riders that might have started their season Tour Down Under and in slightly warmer climes, some riders are coming into this, almost got 1,000 kilometres of racing in the legs already. And there's those riders, the Chantal Blacks, Annemiek Van Vlueten, those sort of riders that are coming in to this race. This is their first race of the season. Do you think that that'll play a factor, or because of the roads that we have here in Belgium and in Flanders, it's such different racing?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting actually, because I think there is an advantage of already having raced this season. You've got that top end effort that you really can't get in training, that race instinct of moving with different moves throughout the race and finishes and climbs, but the roads are so different in Australia, which is where we've seen the riders race already, to these sort of cobbled classic type roads where they're narrow. Positioning is absolutely vital. And like you say, these riders will be slightly fresher. They haven't done the long travels that the other riders who have already been in Australia have done. So I think there's benefits from both sides. I think for me personally, I liked racing on Australia to put that number on my back, feel the nerves, because that is a big part of it as well. Being in a bunch again, some of these riders wouldn't have been in a bunch since potentially before the World Championships if they didn't race there. So yeah, it'll be another factor that will play out today.
Let's have a look at the riders we're going to keep an eye on. We're going to go live pictures very, very shortly. Let's have a look at who we're going to watch out for. Chantal Black's got to be up there as a big favourite. Jip van den Bos, she's had a good start to the season, and she was up here third last year. Marta Bastianelli second last year. She's now with Alei Cipollini. As we go down through this one, Soraya Paladin, now with CCC Live, had a great season. Amelia Farlene, Lucinda Brand, great cross season that she had. Lucy Vanderhaar from the British rider from High Tech Products has had a great start to the year, and some people are talking about Sarah Gigante as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's actually quite open today, and I think that's what makes it so exciting. Being the first race of the season, everyone's looking at each other, testing each other's form, seeing how their winter of training's gone. And I think Lucinda Brand could be a really good one to watch. She had a fantastic cyclocross season, but like you say, Chantal Black, she's podiumed 3 times in this race, so she knows it like the back of her hand. It'll be interesting to see Sarah Gigante racing today. She had a fantastic start to the season, but like I was saying before, the roads are totally different to these classic conditions that you can see now, and positioning is vital. So it just tests another aspect of cycling racing, essentially.
Indeed. Now, before we go live, don't forget, subscribe to GCN Racing. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon as well so you're notified whenever we go live. We also, our social media team at GCN do a great job of letting you know what those when those races are going to be live. So hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching live, give us a big thumbs up as well. That all helps with all the various bits and pieces that we need in the background here on the channel. So if you enjoy the coverage today, give us a big thumbs up. I think we can go down to live pictures. Let's get racing. Some pictures of the rollout. Great crowds. We had the presentation. This is the rollout, and you're going to see some new colours in the race today. We've got the Bila team that are right onto the back of the bike. The likes of Corin Rivera, the Sunweb rider here, is just putting her heavier rain jacket on. In Corin's terms, she didn't have a great season last year in terms of the number of victories that Corin actually took. But she's a classics rider. She's won the Tour of Flanders. She's one rider as well that you can't ever discount on a day like this.
Yeah, no, definitely not. She knows how to ride these races. She's obviously super relaxed at the back. You know, putting her rain jersey on. You tend to see the riders right at the front that are super nervous. They want to be there at the front already. That's Brianna Marcus from the CCC Live team. You see her at the front of the bunch all the time. She really likes to marshal that front of the race. But yeah, the likes of Corin Rivera, she could do well. It will be really interesting to see how she starts this season. 2017 was a fantastic year for her, winning Flanders. And I call this a mini Flanders. You know, a lot of the climbs, cobbled sections are the same. So I hope she does have a good season this year.
Indeed. There's the Park Hotel Valkenburg team. There's Lorena Wiebes, you can see there in the Dutch Champions jersey. And if you've been following the various wranglings that have been going on between Lorena and her team, she had a phenomenal season last year. Had a lot of interest from the bigger teams, and I think her and her Park Hotel Valkenburg team, looking at some of the reports, have reached an agreement at this point, and that's kind of a pretty much all they've said about Lorena Wiebes and where she is. So she's staying with the team at the moment.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my picks for today. She actually didn't finish last year, but she had such a fantastic season after the first few races. She actually won 13 races last year. But like you were saying, with her trying to get out of contract and not being able to get out of contract, coming to some sort of agreement, would that change the sort of dynamic, how she feels in the team? Will that then change her form? I know, for example, when I was racing, it was all about, you know, happy head, fast legs, and if you felt really content in a team, then that made such a difference to how you perform. So I think that'll be interesting today, see if they've kind of put the past behind them with those sort of differences and her trying to get out of the contract, and whether she's just back super focused and in the form that she was in last year.
Audrey Cordon-Rago just moving up for Trek Segafredo, and this team today, what a team of heavy hitters that they've got in this race. So led by Lucinda Brand, they've got Audrey Cordon-Rago, they've got Lotte Hentala, so Lotte Lepisto, now Lotte Hentala, and Ellen van Dijk, Ruth Winder, and Trixie Warrack. So what a team.
Yeah, it's an amazing team, and I think on paper that has to be the strongest team. You know, Lucinda Brand's come over from somewhere. That'll be a real interesting dynamic to see how she works in that team. Ruth Winder won a stage at the Tour Down Under. Ellen knows how to race. You know, she's been in this peloton for a long time.
You can see Jip van der Bos and Skylar Schneider here from the Boels-Dolmans, all heading to the back here, all with the time to get rid of the big rain jackets already. And Jip here just handing her jacket off to Lonneke Uneken. That's a good sign for Jip today. For someone that's new to cycling and watching this early race dynamic, that kind of shows that Jip is potentially a protected rider today.
Yeah, and also it's really interesting that they've all gone to the back together. There's obviously one designated, or maybe a couple spread out throughout the race in terms of the domestiques. One rider's going back to the car to give the jackets away. But I think it's quite interesting that only after 2 kilometres they've taken them off. I guess that shows potentially they were on the start line for a long time, wanted to keep warm, and that maybe they're feeling that it's not quite as cold now they've got going and warmed up a bit. And it's always interesting to see the difference in the riders' clothing choice. You can see some riders with full leg warmers, overshoes, long sleeve, long gloves, almost like a winter ride. I think Ord Bianic there has got a big buff all the way up around her face. And again, it's really down to rider preference. Again, for me specifically, I never like to ride in leg warmers. I'd rather use kind of the hot rubs that you could have on your legs, because I never felt I was in that sort of race mode if I was all wrapped up. And here again you can see Julia Suk coming back, putting her rain jacket away, because potentially it's not as cold as they first thought.
Yeah, Alison Jackson just back as well. Team Sunweb, so Suzanne Anderson, Alison Jackson, Francisca Koch, Florentia Mackay, Corinne Rivera and Julia Suk is that team for Team Sunweb. When you start completely with the leg warmers, the arm warmers, your jacket, your big your gilet, your big jacket, a buff. You've then got, when the race warms up and if it hots up, and if you do have an objective to try and do something today, you've then got to try and get it all off.
Yeah, that's true, and you saw some riders struggling there. Corinne was getting some help from Julia Suk to try and get her waterproof off, and it's really about picking the right time to do that as well. Obviously at this moment, after only a couple of kilometres in the race, it's a safe time to go back to the car, but you know, if you leave it too late and the race starts kicking off, then there's no chance of getting rid of it, or even just taking it off. I guess you could just throw it on the side of the road, but even getting it off could be hard. You know, if you've got cobbles and climbs which do come in close succession, then that could pose a problem.
Let's just run you through some of the colours that you might not have seen. So this green jersey, as we get our first attack of the day from the Dolcini Van Eyck team. That was the Biela Crush team. So Dolcini Van Eyck just having a dig off the front here.
You can see a rider from Ale Cipollini hot on her heels, not letting her go away.
So this first move, this is Nicole Hanselman that's having a go off the front. We'll get confirmation, new colours if it is. So quite a few riders are riding in their new colours for the first time. But early attacks here, if you're familiar with the Women's Pro Peloton, those bright yellow jerseys of the LA BTC Ljubljana team, as they are now. So they're formerly LA Cipollini, merging with the BTC City Ljubljana team to up the budget and back up of that team. Marta Bastianelli back in those colours this year. So Team Sunweb at the back as they're trying to get rid of those jerseys. Everything's starting to kick off at the front. Canyon SRAM, the team, they've got the likes of Elena Cecchini in there. The Barnes sisters are up there as well for Canyon SRAM today. A lot of people talking about Elena Cecchini for this one. CCC Live, Soraya Paladin is a good bet for CCC Live today. They're in their bright orange jerseys. We'll pick them out. FDJ Actam Futura Scope, they're in their familiar blue and white colours, but this is the start of a first decent move here.
Yeah, and it is a really decent move. She looked like she went on a small incline, and it really did sort of start stringing the bunch together. You saw the Sunweb team coming together to work together after they'd got rid of their rain jackets to try and get back to the front, and she's kept this attack going, and that's what's really impressive. She had a gap there was riders trying to close it, and she's carried on, and I think that's so important. If you're going to attack, make it work. Don't just waste energy.
Amelia Farlene having a bit of a mechanical. I hope that wasn't just her team car in the blue that went past her. Just trying to sort her gears out here. The former Swedish champion, you can hear the car just beeping, so it looks like she's got the chain caught between the chainset and the frame. The team car gets up to her, so kept going as long as she could, persisting with trying to get the chain back on before she waited. That's a good lesson as well for any young riders that are watching, in terms of Amelia, the team car quite far back in the line, and just kept going as long as possible, riding as long as she could, just trying to get that chain back on if she could, and then once the team car gets to you, then that's when you get off and change, and it is Nicole Hanselman that's clear.
Yeah, and she didn't panic. You could see she was really calm. She took a drink, took her time to put the bottles onto the new bike that she was given by the team. And Amelia's been in the peloton for years and years, and it'll be really interesting to see how she comes back. I'd love her to do a good ride today. She suffered from a bad concussion last year. She had a fantastic year in 2018 where she was 4th in the World Championships, and everyone thought this was her back again after she had some great years in the high-tech team. But unfortunately last year she didn't race much because of this concussion, and she's back again this year with FDJ, so I hope she has a great year. But Nicole Hasselman's looking really good here. This is almost a replay of last year.
It is. I was literally about to say that. If we think back to last year, Nicole Hanselman was the rider, if you remember the news, who got clear and caught the men's race, didn't she, last year?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I love about women's races versus the men's. I am a fan of the men's peloton, but I think because the races are shorter for the women, I think this is 123 versus around 200 kilometres. It means that the women's is such fast and furious racing from the word go. You can see how strung out this is already. Whereas the men's, there are a lot more lulls in the peloton, hence how Nicole Hasselman did catch the back of the men's peloton last year.
Elizabeth Bennett on the back. New colours this year for Drops. If you're a fan of Drops, they've gone. I like the Drops kit this year. It does look good. Elizabeth Bennett just moving up there. They're still on those bright yellow Cannondale bikes. Back to our leader though, Nicole Hanselman, the Swiss rider from Dolcini Van Eyck Sport. So Drops in there today. Emily Moberg, they've got Finja Schmeckel, Sarah Penton and Maria van Skaloof is the team. They're quite an international team for Drops in this race and this year. Yeah,
I'm really pleased that the Drops team have been able to continue. I know they had a lot of problems with potential sponsors last year, but Bob Varney's done a great job in being able to secure the team again to be in the peloton this year. And yeah, I do really like the kit. I think Nicole has actually taken over as their kit sponsor this year, so that'll be another dynamic. I guess the riders that have maybe new clothing sponsors or are new to the team, they need to test out the clothing as well, and especially if they're not from Europe, they might not have had a chance to ride in these sort of weather conditions, so they'll be sussing out their new kit, what they like to race in, what they don't, what's warm, what's too warm. There's so many choices out there now. There's probably 5 different types of long sleeves, gilets, undervests, so yeah, sussing it out at these first few races.
That's the Multum Accountants LSK ladies team, which is Lara Delfour is wearing 121 for them, the kind of gold, black and white jerseys for them. The WCC team are here as well, the World Cycling Centre team for the UCI Cycling School, and they've got Ayaru Gebru from Ethiopia is wearing 231 for them. 30 seconds is your time gap. The first obstacle we would say that the riders are going to tackle is the Haag Hook, which is a 1900 metre cobble section. That comes with 84 kilometres to go. Christine Majorus, we were chatting about her before. Great season, always a worker for really over the years for Boels-Dolmans, but she seemed like she started to get a lot more opportunities last year. She had a good cross season as well, solid cross season. For her, again, she's a rider that you can never ever discount in a race like this.
No, definitely not, and I'd love for her to have more opportunities, and yeah, that definitely did start to change and be seen throughout last year. But she's just such a super domestique, and I think she's almost found her place being that sort of domestic rider. And it looked to see that she was going back to the car then, so whether that was just for herself or teammates, we'll soon find out and kind of see the dynamic between these teams and suss out who the ride leaders are for today's race. But she is such a fantastic, respected rider as well in the peloton. If Majerus is around, then you know you're in the right place.
For riders today, for those that haven't been around the world, or as we said, come from Tour Down Under and those sort of races, is there always that element of nervousness when you come into your first race of the season, that sort of, okay, has my winter gone as well as I thought? You might have had the right vibes when you've been out training, but it is completely different when you pin on a number and you get in here.
Yeah, totally. It's not always about numbers, especially in these classic races. You can see Ellen van Dijk there just relaxing at the back. She knows that this isn't a crucial part of the race and she'll move up when she has to. But there's some riders that are so nervous that they're trying to be at the front all the time, potentially taking risks by the side of the roads where there's curbs. That can cause crashes. Everyone's quite touchy. Again, being in a bunch is new for a lot of riders if they haven't ridden since World. So that's another thing to get used to.
Through the course of your career and into, as we just seen Nicole Hansen and the group have got her in their side, but in the course of your career, how did you find the shift as these years are going on? Because it is getting more intense in there. It's the speed is up. The talent that used to be sort of pocketed within just a couple of teams is now spread out through the entire peloton. We've now got the big, these World Tour teams like Mitchelton-Scott, Trek Segafredo, Movistar. How did you find it as the years went into the back end of your career in the shift in speed and the dynamic of the racing?
Yeah, it was actually amazing. I actually did a podcast with Kristen Armstrong, the 3-time Olympic gold medalist, last night, and we were talking about the evolution of women's cycling and how far it's come. And it's great to see this coverage, for example. That is a big step forward in women's cycling. But it changed so much throughout my career. My first year was in 2009 on Nicole Cook's team, Vision 1 Racing, and I actually did ride the Tour of Flanders, and it's just grown from strength to strength. And I think that does come down to a lot of coverage. Essentially, if these sponsors can get their business names onto a jersey and know that will be on the TV, they're going to invest in these teams. Then with investment comes an increase in standard, because a lot of these women now will be full-time, whereas when I first started, the majority were having to work at the same time. So it's just going from strength to strength. The speed is going up. You're seeing that in average speeds. The quality of racing, and especially the quality of the teamwork in racing, is definitely changing. Riders are now confident to work as a team because they're confident that they've got these contracts, whereas before I think riders were really trying to look at themselves a lot because they were worried from one year to the next that they wouldn't have a contract, and it was all about UCI points rather than potentially working for teammates in different races. So yeah, it's amazing to see now that the real difference in women's cycling and these teams that are developing.
Colours here of Valcar, the Valcar Travel and Service team. Some interesting riders in there again. Watch out for Teniel Campbell from Trinidad and Tobago. Was with the World Cycling Centre team last year. Had a phenomenal season. Did the Trinidad and Tobago rider. Andrew Montgomery, looking forward to see how Abby May goes with Lotto Soudal. Also Barbara Gorishki for Movistar. But Dani, you can tell us a lot about Abby May because you're her coach.
Yeah, I am actually. So I've been coaching Abby now for just over a year, and she's really developing as a rider. She had a fantastic cyclocross season this year. She was racing with Trinity Racing in the Cyclocross League. She's recently raced in Valencia. She's really happy and content in Lotto Soudal, which again is half the battle. If you're happy and content in a team, then you tend to ride better. So I'm really excited to see how Abby goes today. She's usually really well positioned, and she's definitely got good legs, so I've got my fingers crossed for her. And Barbara Grishki is also a really good rider to watch, and she's super aggressive. She's always in the right place at the right time, and I think for her, if she can get over these climbs, then she'll be there in the sprint because she's a fantastic sprinter.
So the catch is made, Nicole Hanselman, and it's her teammate as the first rider that gets up to her. She gets the nod to go. So Dolcini Van Eyck, the team that clearly have been given the orders by the director sportif this morning to make sure that they get in the breaks.
Yeah, but that was almost a bit of in slow motion attacking then. They almost looked at each other, thought, right, you're caught, shall I go? And I think if that was me, I would have tried to have come a bit more from the back, although there hasn't been a huge reaction in the bunch. I think potentially it could have been a bit more aggressive, but she has got a good gap now, so we'll see how this one sticks. Looking at the weather as well, I think it's predominantly headwind, so trying to attack into a headwind is almost like you're just hanging yourself out there to dry. So I think you have to take weather into consideration and wind direction when you are attacking like this.
Indeed. Thanks to all of you for getting on board over on our chat. Thanks all of you for tuning in and saying hi. And just a little shout out here, Nadia Millie. It's just apparently I'm insulting the whole of Australia with my pronunciation of Sarah Gigante. Is it Gigante?
Gigante?
Right. If you write it for now, I'll always take a correction. And apologies if I've hugely insulted you with that one, but just it says Nadia Millie says soft G. Is it Gigante then?
Gigante.
I'm sorry. Tell me Nadia if I'm getting that right. So yes, we do our best. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. GCN Racing. It's the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, the elite women. It's Marieke van Wittenberg from Dolcini Van Eyck that's going clear. Nicole Hansen, when her teammate, was the first rider to go. We're 114 kilometers to go. As we said, the first obstacle is the Haarkoek, which is the first section of cobblestones. We then go into the Routestraat after 57 kilometers. That's with 68.9 to go. The Layberg, which is the first climb, that comes with 81 kilometers to go. That's 900 meters, averaging 4%. So Haarkoek, then the Layberg. So everyone will be lining up, trying to get themselves jockeying for position for those climbs. The Dolcini Van Eyck team, they're one of those teams that are always right. I mean, I watched, right from the Tour Down Under, they're always a super aggressive team.
Yeah, and I love that. Why not take the race, by the horns and, try and go up against these really big teams like Trek, Boels-Dolmans. By doing this, they're giving themselves a really good chance to be in the race and give themselves the opportunities to be there at the start when it gets super hard and these cobbled sections, these climbs come thick and fast. They're putting themselves at the front. If they can get themselves in a break, by the time the race is split up, that's the biggest opportunity that you can have to be there at the finish.
Right, I've had my pronunciation police correction. Thanks everyone, love you. Christopher Paul, it's Gigante apparently. Thanks for that, Gigante. Thanks for that. Sorry if I've insulted the whole of Australia today. Shout out to Janice Ashcroft in Adelaide. Thanks for saying hi. So thanks for your correction. Nice to get it done early out, get that out of the way for the day. As you might be following, if you're with us for Cross or GCN Racing, I'm now learning Dutch. This throughout the year. That's my goal of the year, is to improve my Dutch. 113 kilometers to go. This shows, we looked at this start and looking at the wind direction, you can see it's going to be super tough for anyone to try and get away. And when you're in this position, you're always thinking, come on, there's got to be a couple of others that want to come with me. Yeah,
definitely. And I think unfortunately, if you're solo at this stage with still 113 kilometers to go, you really are kind of
and there she is,
a death wish. The
Sarah Gigante.
Talking about.
She looks chilly.
She does. Well, she's come from Australia, so I'm sure this is a bit of a shock to the system for her.
So they're just now the tip coat colours. They always change them subtly each year, and Sarah 19, national was national champion, is national time trial champion of Australia. Got a runner-up spot, Herald Suntour. So a class rider. There is a big difference, isn't there, when you get into these Flanders roads. We've got a chasing group now of 5 riders coming clear. So we're starting to get a little bit of reaction here on the opening kilometres. We're on Omloop Het Nieuwsblad today. Welcome aboard. This is our first big classic of the season, and we'll be bringing a lot of live classics here on GCN Racing this spring. Van Wittenberg. This group though is just starting to swell a little bit, and this is what happens, isn't it, when that group just gets a little bit too big, it just all draws everything back together again.
Yeah, and this is when it becomes dangerous and when teams really do need to be attentive. It's all very well sitting near the back knowing that there's not any significant cobbled sections or climbs coming up, but this is when a little group could easily just nip off the front and that could be game over. So it's really interesting to see the teams that are present now on the front. You can see the Mitchelton-Scott team, Tibco, LA Ljubljana, the Park Hotel team, Movistar, Canyon SRAM. So a lot of those teams are represented at the front, and they will have riders to do that. So they would have had a team meeting before the start of the race and potentially split the race into sections. So one rider could have the job of looking after the first, potentially into the first cobbled section. So don't let anyone get up the front, or riders over and above 2 to 3 riders, especially if any of the big teams are present. And then your leaders will be sitting a bit further back, trying to conserve energy. You can see here Tanya Erath from the Canyon SRAM team. She was the winner of the Zwift Academy a couple of years ago, which has proved to be a fantastic program to get, women, or opportunities for women to race in the professional peloton, and she's really taken this opportunity and doing a fantastic job for Canyon SRAM.
Question from Michael, or Mikael, depending on which part of the world you're from. Are there any Thomas de Gent's breakaway specialists in the women's peloton? For me, I'm going to look at someone like Brodie Chapman.
Yeah, or Ellen van Dijk. I would say she could be one that could, go off the front and stay there essentially. But yeah, Brodie Chapman is also one that is super strong in that sort of scenario. I don't think you see so many solo moves in women's racing. We saw Chantal Black win this solo last year, but it's really about sort of taking those opportunities on these quick concessional climbs towards the finish.
See Movistar just moving up, and I'll see if John's got it lined up, but I didn't manage. Now that we're kind of on the rollout, we're all back together here. I caught up with Annemiek Van Vlueten earlier on in the week, and we'll let you hear what she had to say. Now we're going into classic season, what's your expectation for the classics? It's going to be quite a long campaign, as we're with this being Olympic year as well.
Yeah, first I'm focused only 100% on the classics. Until Liège, I will not think about Tokyo at all. Actually, I'm also not selected yet. It will be announced on the 8th of May for the Dutch riders. And I also love the classics, so I would feel sad only to think about 2020 is an Olympic year. There's so much more to focus on. Yeah, all the classics I ride, I will target. So I can't wait to race and to start racing. Usually I'm a slow starter for the classic season, and I expect this year with a good winter and no setbacks at all, that I will be at a higher level than I had other years.
I've caught up with one of the videos that came out from the team of you on a training camp with the men's team. How has that differed, training with them as opposed to the elite women's team or on your own?
Harder. It's more kilometers, higher intensity uphill, longer also, like we did on average 200 kilometer rides. But yeah, I would not say it's good for me every time, but like for a 9-day camp, out of my with the length and with the intensity, it was awesome. And yeah, I've seen that my fitness level went up like super quick last year, and that's why I want to do it again. It was so good. It's not possible to do or something like yourself by yourself, to organize this like yourself, because the support was also amazing with the team, like with all the sponsors and the hotel chains and the routes they made and follow cars. So yeah, and it's also not possible mentally, I think, to organize something like this, like to do so many kilometers by yourself. So it was awesome to do it with the guys, with the group. It went very fast and it was fun also. The team camp with the guys, I could not have done that 5 years ago. It's also a process of years to extend every year a little bit your the amount of hours you can do to, how do you say, like to put your body on a stress factor, on a challenge. And if you do that with not the history of already doing some hours, then you will get overtrained or overreached or sick. So it's also a process that I built for years with my coach that I did already a lot of hours before. And yeah, I think you can still train the hours I did 5 years ago, but then my body is not in shock anymore of a 4-hour training, right? So I need to search for another stress factors for my body, and yeah, to join the team camp with the guys, that's like at this moment in my career, it's an awesome stress factor for my body, and that's where I look for. I still do the really good recovery weeks after, otherwise you will not get better of it.
Annemiek Van Vlueten there. So Amelie Lutro, the victim of one of the slowest bike changes I've seen in a while. The lost pedal, something you don't see very often either. The bike for Amelie was right in the middle of the team car as well. Lots of attacks now. Dorchini Van Eyck, very, very animated at the start of the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Dani, Rowe, Marty, McDonald are with you to take you through today's action. For Amelie, that was a slow change, and as well her bike right in the middle of the team car as well, and that kind of shows the hierarchy of order within a team.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously your leaders would be on the outside with quick access, but I've never seen that in a race before, a pedal coming off, the whole pedal, as opposed to maybe a cleat or a shoe problem. But that was a slow change. I think she's going to be hoping for a lull in the peloton, which we actually can see now. And as long as she was back on her bike when the cars are still going through, she should be fine, because she can use the cars to get back through the convoy and back onto the back of the peloton. But I thought it was so interesting what Annemiek Van Vlueten was saying there. A couple of points actually, how she targets every single classic that she rides. So we know that she will be the leader for this race today. And also that she tries to increase her mileage or some sort of stress factor to her training every year, because otherwise her body would just get used to the same training stimulus. And I just wonder where she's going to go if she's already training with the men up to 200 kilometers in a training ride. I'm not sure how much harder or longer she's going to be able to train in the next few years. But I think, yeah, she had an incredible year last year, and she's going to be one to watch, I guess, through the classics and for Tokyo, as it is the Olympic year.
Yeah, we just saw Oudbianiek and Jelena Eric at the back of the race. Dorchini Van Eyck constantly just testing out the peloton to try and get away here. The Rally Pro Cycling team they're wearing their orange. Chloe Hosking was the rider that was a little bit further down the group. This Chevalmier team, the black and white colours, and they're going again here as big attack goes in.
This is super impressive by this team. You can see a Park Hotel rider here just trying to get up to her, and an Ali Ljubljana team member trying to get across. They really need strength in numbers here for these attacks to work. And I saw Rosella Ratto actually was the first rider I've seen in shorts and jersey, which I'm very surprised about. I actually rode with a team in Silence in 2017 with Rosella, an Italian rider, and she was one to really feel the cold. So she's obviously manning up for this race or potentially knows it's going to be super aggressive or has that kind of role. This is actually Femke Marcus for the Park Hotel team, and she's the sister of Rihanna Marcus, who rides for the CCC Live team. And Femke, the rider you're seeing here from Park Hotel, is also a speed skater. So she's doing dual sports at the moment. She's really, high up in the nation ranking for the Dutch speed skating as well. So this is a really impressive move, and if these riders really collaborate together, then this could be our first real key move of the day.
So 107 kilometres to go. So the riders have been trying to get a decent breakaway established for quite a while. Peloton, look at the moment, 12 seconds is the gap already. So the Peloton at the moment, we saw that early attack by Nicole Hanselman. Dolcini Van Eyck have been testing out this Peloton constantly since the word go today. They just managing to get away. You can see the wind really buffeting the riders as they try to get clear.
Yeah, that's a great shot there. You can really see how windy it is out there, and if it is a headwind, that's going to be really, really tough for the riders. But this race there are so many little twists and turns and exposed sections, and we are coming up to a slight climb with 13.5 kilometres. So that could split things up a bit. You're seeing riders potentially stopping for a nature break, maybe. Yeah, the riders are stopping together in the team so they can work together to then get back on as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Three riders looking good at the front of this group. I think it's Micah Bogard that's up here for LA BTC City Ljubljana. Confirmation of that one. 15 seconds the gap that they are holding here. Constantly just checking back over the shoulder just to see what sort of damage that they are doing to the group behind. Still early stages here today.
You can see the pelotons really spread from left to right hand side of the road, which says to me that there probably is some sort of lull in the peloton and no one's really trying to push across to this group yet.
So the back of the peloton, so colours, the Team Timco colours, Lotto Soudal are there. We'll just run you through a few of our favourites as our breakaway tries to get themselves established. If you're just tuning in today, last year's winner, Chantal Black, or Chantal Vandenbroek Black as she is now on the start list. Annemiek Van Vlueten, another rider that we've got to watch out for today. Marta Bastianelli is a rider that we expect to be up there as well. Elena Cecchini from Canyon SRAM. Soraya Paladin potentially from the CCC Live team. Amelia Farlene of FDJ. Aude Bionique from Movistar. Yelena Eric though as well could be an outsider for them. Floortje Mackay from Sunweb. And Lucinda Brand from Trek Segafredo, and an outsider for her, Lucy van der Hart from High Tech Products. Another rider trying to come across the gap here.
Yeah, looks like a Timco rider just using this slight incline in the road to get herself over to this group of three now that have established themselves in a break.
So we've got the other rider in here is Schweinberger from Dolcini Van Eyck. Confirmation of our breakaway group momentarily.
This is such a hard road to try and stay away in a break on. It's obviously really straight. The riders are in sight of the peloton, so when the roads are twisty and turny and there's a bit more up and down, they can hide and get away. But unfortunately for them on this road, you know, they're almost being hung out there.
You can see the jackets and just been buffeted by the wind. So the weather for the riders today, 10 degrees Celsius dropping to 8 as the day goes on. 37 km/h winds, dropping to 32, but gusts of 69 to 79 kilometers for the riders today. We're 105 kilometers from the finish. Hard hook first cobblestone section. Is there that again? Do you feel even early on here you've got to get we'll see a kind of hierarchy of power coming to the front before that first cobblestone section?
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember when I was racing, that was a real key moment and a really good chance to test the team in getting a lead out essentially for your leader. So I think you'll see a lot of teams come to the forefront of the race before that section and really power over the cobbles to try and get over in the best sort of shape possible, and the cobbles, bottles can come flying out, there can be crashes, and a lot of these riders want to keep themselves safe, and the safest place is at the front. So yeah, I'm excited to see the start of that, and that's what I love so much about the classics. It's almost mini races within one race. There's races to the bottom of the climbs, races to the start of these cobbled sections and throughout these sections. So that's why it's super exciting from start to finish.
So our breakaway group, Femke Marcus, Micah Bogard and Christina Schweinberger, those are the three riders at the head of the race, the riders that we thought were up there. So moving on, a rider here from Timco, though, just battling across the gap. At which point do you decide that it game over when you're trying to get across to a breakaway group like this? Because you generally want to hit it, you want to hit it hard, you want to cross that gap quickly.
Yeah, that is savage for the Timco rider who's just in between these two groups, and like you say, there has to come a point where you almost give up, because still at this early stage of the race you're using so much energy, and it's all about saving as much as you can. I remember an analogy we used to use was that you started the race with a sponge that was full of water, and every time you made a bit of an effort you're squeezing a little bit more water out of the sponge to the point where basically you're completely empty. So all these little moves that potentially don't pay off are wasted energies that you don't want to be sort of given away at this stage of the race. You can see Julius Suken, Corin Rivera there, looking pretty relaxed, just sorting parts of their kit out there at the back of the peloton.
Our three-rider group, Christina Schweinberger decides it's time to get some fuel in already. Cold days like this, your fueling becomes even more important.
It's really, really important, especially in these sort of conditions, cold conditions. Your energy consumption will be higher, so it's really important to eat little and often, and almost like that sponge analogy, keep getting it in so that there doesn't come a point where basically it's too late. So I think that's a really good move, that the riders are starting to eat and fuel as we go, and also keep hydrated. So a lot of the riders will have energy drink in their bottles so that they're getting the energy, the calories in through drinking if they find it hard to eat on the bike as well, which can be actually really tough in these sort of classic races, because you're so fixated on positioning, getting over the cobbles, getting over the climbs. Actually you can find that there's been a big gap between when you last ate. So by having the drinks bottles, you're getting that drip feeding that energy in throughout the race every time you take a drink.
Corin Rivera looks like she's having a few issues with her radio, potentially, Corin Rivera.
Yeah, it did look like that, and the radio is super key in these races to be able to communicate not only with the riders but with your director in the car behind.
Christina Schweinberger just starting to just get distance from the group, the 23-year-old rider from Austria, Marcus Bogard, powering on here. Just having a glance back over the shoulder. That Dolcini Van Eyck team did a fantastic job to get themselves into the breakaway today. You can see these two riders powering on through here. Just to give you a bit of, if you weren't with us at the beginning of our broadcast today, in terms of the route, we've got those 5 cobblestone sections, the first being the Haarburg with 84 to go. We then come at 68.9, the Route Strat, the Kirkgate at 65.7, then the Jägerei at 63.1 to go, then the Paderstraat with 51.9. Run you through your climbs that you're going to see today. So 81k to go, that's the summit of that is the Leyberg. We're then on to the Wolvenberg with 69.1 to go, then on to the Molenberg, the cobblestones there, then the Reckelberg, the Berendries, the Elverenberg, the Vossenholt, the Ten Boss with 31.9 to go, then the Eikemolen with 26.4 to go, and then we get into the iconic climbs, the Muur, Kappelmuur with 16.7 to go, and then onto the Bosberg with 12.8 to go. So that is what the riders are going to tackle today, the history of this race, going back, if we go back to 2010, Emma Johansson won it back to back in 2010, 2011, 2012 was Loes Gunnewijk. Tiff Cromwell won it in 2013, Amy Peters in 2014. We've had Anna van der Breggen, Lizzie Deignan in 2016. Was that the year she started with no gloves? You were telling me.
It freaked me out. Yeah, I remember seeing her on the start line with no gloves, and it was a lot colder than it is today even, and I thought that is just crazy. And I think it maybe was a bit of a mind game. Very brave of her for sure. But it's yes, this race has been going since 2006, and there's only been 2 riders that have won this race twice, and that's Suzanne de Gode and Emma Johansson. And Emma Johansson has been on the podium 5 times and won this race twice, like I just said. So she was a real key favourite for this race. She was on the start line for sure.
So Lucinda Brandt in 2017, she double up today, and then Christina Seagard, that was a great win by her in 2018. Christina Seagard's got to be her biggest victory so far in her career as the attacks come from the Peloton.
Yeah, and you've got Tanya Erath as well there from Canyon SRAM, doing a really great job for the team, being there at the start, obviously trying to chase down any moves that are going. But Christina Seagard, I remember when she won that edition, and it was almost a huge shock to her. I remember seeing the pictures. She's got her arms, out in front celebrating, and she looks more shocked than happy, which is really nice to see. I love seeing outsiders win this race, riders that you may not think are the key favourites. It looks like these riders are trying to get a bit of a chase going here, getting a bit frustrated that they haven't got a set group of girls that are committed to really trying to chase this attack down, and we are coming closer to this first cobble section now, so the nerves will be getting higher, and this Timco rider is still battling to try and get across.
Oh, look at the weather. You can see it really is today, the blustery winds. A few of you commenting on the jacket here of Femke Marcus, but in this situation and in this wind, this is near on impossible to try. I know we love all our this is sucking watts away from us, but in this situation it's virtually impossible to take your hands off the bars in that position and take your jacket off.
Yeah, it will be more dangerous for her to try and either take it off or zip it up in these conditions. So she's just going to have to deal with it, and hopefully maybe at some point in the race she'll have a chance to take it off. You can see Lizzie Banks there from the Bigler team on the left-hand side of your screen, British rider who won a stage at the Giro last year. She's doing a good job for Bigler, obviously trying to get these riders back.
Brutal conditions today, isn't it? This, look at the downpour that the riders are riding through today. These are the days, Dani, when you really sad that you retired from racing, aren't you?
Very, very sad to be in this warm studio watching the race. But no, this is savage, and like I said at the very beginning of this show, some riders will embrace it, and some riders, this will just defeat them, and they will, they'll hate every minute of it. And you can see the crosswinds as well. The riders are almost being, thrown to one side of the road, and this is where it's really, really important to be at the front, and you'll see the likes of the big teams get into the forefront of the race to make sure they're at the front for this first cobbled section.
Mitchelton-Scott moving up, and the Katusha Bigler team of Lizzie Banks that we were talking about. They've had a really solid start to the season with Emma Cecily Jorgensen taking the victory down in Valenciana, and Leah Thomas as well, the American. She's a good rider on a solid day like this. She rode well in Scotland, did Leah, didn't she?
She did, and I think it was actually Leah Thomas that it looked like that Lizzie Banks was protecting there. So Lizzie Banks was riding just on the outside of Leah Thomas to protect her. The wind was obviously coming from left to right. The riders in the right-hand side of the road, the gutter, to make sure the whole peloton can't just benefit from their riding at the front. And this is where the race is going to get, super exciting, potentially super dangerous, and where it is so important to be near the front.
It is indeed. There's Lotta Hintala on your left there in the blue jersey with the white sleeves, from Finland. The motorbike just gets bumped over the top of that road furniture. See the Finnish rider there, already suited up for battle. Ruth Winder just moving up as well, the American national champion. You see her in her Stars and Stripes jersey, just getting herself up towards the front here. That Trek Segafredo team, Canyon SRAM, very much to the front, and our Tipco rider, and confirmation of who it is that is coming across with that Shimano neutral service car is in that gap.
This is a really nice position to be in at this stage of the race, where everyone is getting really nervous before this cobble climb. The rain is coming down, the wind is proving to be a factor in this race, and these three riders in the front are just out of that trouble. They can work together and hope that they can get over at least one or two of these really crucial sections before the peloton sweeps them up, and even then it could be a reduced peloton, giving them more of a chance to stick in. You can see Tanya Erat from the Canyon SRAM team still at the front here, doing a fantastic job, staying out of trouble, and she's really proven that she can ride in a bunch. I think the problem with potentially a couple of the Zwift Academy winners that they'd have had before have come from maybe being super good on a turbo, but actually not knowing how to race in a peloton. And obviously with the classic races, that is part of bike racing. It's not just all about your numbers and how strong you are, it's about how you can position yourself, how you can ride in a team, and how you can use these conditions to your advantage. And this is savage conditions. You can see actually in the middle of the road here, this was always a really dangerous part of racing on Belgian roads. There was almost a gutter in the middle of the road, so you know the cobbles are dangerous enough, but they've got this sort of gutter to try and contend with, where you had to be careful how you actually navigated your bike from the left to the right hand side of the road, or vice versa, because if you came into too much on the side, then your front or back wheel could get stuck, and that can be really treacherous.
Emily Newsom is your Tipco rider that has latched on to give us a trio of leaders. Katusha Bigler, Lizzie Banks, Leah Thomas, very much to the front of the peloton. This team are up there. Audrey Cordon-Rago is not far away. So if you're just tuning in, it's Femke Marcus from Park Hotel Valkenburg, Michael Bogard from LA BTC City Ljubljana. And big respect to Emily Newsom for the chase to get across there. That's a gutsy ride. It took her a while, but she got there eventually.
She did, and fair play to her for just battling on, because she has made it, and I'm sure she sort of made a big sigh of relief as she got to these two riders at the front. Now they are out of trouble as we are approaching the first cobbled section of the day.
So good to see them up there. So Emily Newsom from Team Tipco SVB, 36-year-old rider from the US, been with Tipco since 2018. So just a few of you asking on the social, are we showing the men's race? No, this is the most exciting Omloop Het Nieuwsblad today. You can watch that with our friends and colleagues over on Eurosport. We're showing the
most exciting race.
So thanks all of you. Let us know where you're watching us today, and just put your name, where you're watching. We'll give you a little shout. We'd like to put a little pin in the map around the world. Lorena Weavers just getting brought through here from her Park Hotel Valkenburg team. Is there a potentially some friction that might arise within that? There's a potential for some friction, or do you think with Lorena wanting to go, and she said in her interviews, and I was reading one just before, that she's got nothing against any of the riders that she raced with, or as a pro rider, is that you've got to just put it behind you, and if the team's going to win, if she's going to win, you've just got to forget it all when you're in there and taking orders?
Yeah, I think initially there probably was quite a lot of friction when they were going through the battle of her trying to get out of a contract, but I think when it comes to this stage of the season, the first big race of the season, you have to put it behind you, because ultimately it will then affect her performance, the team's atmosphere. So I'm sure they would have had a training camp, and she's in this team now, so she really needs to embrace it, and they're riding really well. You can see Femke Marcus here in this break of 3 at the front with a 50-second gap, which is pretty substantial, especially going into this first Haghook 2-kilometre section of cobbles. And then you can see one of her other teammates there keeping Lorena Weavers at the front. So I hope that they've put it behind them. and that she can have another fantastic season. I was really impressed by the way the Park Hotel team were riding in the last part of the season last year. We both commentated on the Tour of Norway together, and they rode fantastically there. So I'm sure they'll put it behind them. Car to try and navigate around there. That's all the different sort of sticky points of these races that you have to keep your eye on. You know, getting around cars and being so attentive, and that's another reason why these races are so savage. You have to keep mentally, you know, on top of every situation. You can see Audrey, I think Rago Cordon for the Trek Segafredo team here at the front of this race. She's ridden this race on many occasions. Or is that actually Ellen Van Dyke? I can't quite.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
Ellen.
I think it is Ellen actually. But again, like Audrey, these are the riders who have ridden these races time and time again, and that also makes a real difference. I know for me, for my last season on the road, if I'd ridden the race in previous years, you went into it with a different kind of confidence. You knew what to expect, although the weather conditions might be different. Essentially, the courses are a lot of the same, and you know when the decisive moves are going to be, when you need to be at the front and use your energy. And again, even just the confidence going into the race, having ridden it before, it is a big deal.
Thanks. We'll just give you a few shout outs. We'll put a little map around the world. Let's go Eri from Osaka in Japan. We've got Iggy from Wollongong, New South Wales. Sydney Brown from Lincoln, Nebraska. Thanks for saying hi. Nick Marcosian from Santan Valley in Arizona. They do click past me quite quickly. Ian watching from Ottawa in Canada. We've got FK from Kazakhstan. Thanks for tuning in. We've got Dionysia from Sherwood Forest in England. So Apple Martin from New York. Thanks all of you for saying hi. Paula Rinaldi from Boulder, Colorado. David Pollock from Vermont. Anders Beckman from Germany. So all over the world, as we love here on GCN Racing. If you're wondering what the weather conditions and the weather forecast is, it's pretty much like this throughout the day. So 10 degrees Celsius dropping as the afternoon goes on to about 8. That's 50 degrees Fahrenheit dropping to about 46. Rain forecast as well. These storms, it's pretty stormy. The 37 km/h winds dropping to 32 kilometers as the day goes on, but gusts of 69 to 79 kilometers an hour. That was the weather forecast. So that's what they're battling against today, and battling being the operative word. If you're just joining us today, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us here on GCN Racing, the Elite Women's Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, 122.9 kilometers and 1163 meters of elevation, starting in Ghent, finishing in Ninove is the course and the route today. 5 cobblestone sections, 10 climbs that they have to tackle, including the iconic Muur Muur with 16.7 kilometers to go. We summit that one, then onto the Bosberg, and then the run down into Ninove. We're looking at, Dani, these first cobblestone sections, these first climbs, and we can already see Canyon SRAM, Trek Segafredo, Mitchelton-Scott, all very much up towards the front. Gut feeling today, do you think we're going to see earlier on in this race, because of the conditions, a much smaller selection than we might have seen if it was a bit different weather-wise?
Yeah, you do find that a lot with the weather conditions being this bad, that the race will split up a lot more because the riders are more attentive to be at the front, and that will just call for a faster race depending on the weather conditions. And you can see, you know, the riders' faces now. It is such grim conditions, and they are obviously going at quite a pace. You can see Lizzie Banks here really driving it and on the front for the Bigler team. The Bowles team are together. You can see Lucinda Brown there just poking through in the Trek Segafredo colours, Movistar. You can see these teams are really coming to the front as teams. We're coming into the last 10 kilometres before the cobbled section. Rihanna Marcus there, who is the sister of Femke Marcus, one of the 3 riders in the front group at the front of this race, staying out of trouble before we hit these crucial parts of the race. There's another CCC rider quite close behind, a Lotto rider. So I think we are going to see it becoming fast and furious, and it's almost like a race in itself to the start of these iconic parts of the race.
One rider I can see towards the front who's a complete dark horse today is Chloe Hosking in the orange of rally cycling. She's in this team, and rally cycling, they've only got 4 riders. They've got Heidi Franz, Leanne Ganser, Chloe Hosking, and Sarah Poitevin. I hope I say that right, Canadian viewers. But Chloe Hosking, already a winner this year, already had her hands in the air. But these are sort of races now with this rally team that she could get a little bit more freedom, and we know Chloe's sort of pedigree as a rider, and she's already very much up towards the front.
Yeah, I'm always really intrigued to see how Chloe is going, and she could really be, I guess an outsider, but she was 4th here in 2018, and I think again for her, if she can get over these climbs, then she's got a massive chance. If this race comes into the finish with a small group and she's there, you wouldn't count her out, because she is one of the best sprinters in the peloton. She's now riding for the rally team, and via social media, she seems to be very happy and content in the team. So yeah, I think once we get to the quick succession of climbs and cobbles, we'll see sort of where her form is. She has won a race already this year in Australia, but again, like I was saying at the start of the show, it's very, very different, and it's really hard to compare. And we can't really say that those riders will be at the end at the front of this race today, because it is so totally different.
40 seconds is your time gap. Your breakaway group: Femke Marcus from Park Hotel Valkenburg, Micah Bogard from LA BTC City Ljubljana, and Emily Newsom from Team Tibco. So Silicon Valley Bank, to give them their full name. Back to the front of the peloton: Mitchelton-Scott, Monique Teniglo, the Mitchelton-Scott rider on the right, Lucinda Brandt just moving through, Christine Majerus in the orange there with that Luxembourg Champions helmet. There lots of shouting around the front of this peloton.
Yeah, Jana Korova for Team CCC Live, that's the tall girl in the middle of your screen there in the orange. She's always in a great position. I rode with her in my final year, and she was such a good teammate to have in the bunch. Always could navigate herself well, and that's, I think, what comes with Dutch riders. They grow up on the bike, and they're such technically good riders, and that's it's half the battle in bike riding. I know for myself, I really had to learn how to ride in a bunch, how and when to use my energy to stay in that sort of sweet spot in the top sort of 10, 20 riders in a race, and not be on the front using energy. And she was fantastic for that, and she's been in the top 10 a couple of times in this race. She can sprint, so she's another rider, a little bit of an outsider, who I'd love to see do well today.
So this route, as we said, it heads out of Ghent, Haaghoek. We're at it's that first cobblestone section, and lots of changes. It's one thing as well when you get into this part of the world, there's so many different changes in road surface, isn't there? We go from those sort of big slabs, almost, as you were talking, with the groove down the middle that you're always aware that you can catch yourself on. Then you get into sort of this, whether you've got the almost slick bricks, then we've got cobblestones, we've got the tarmac. There's constantly, you must just be, when you're in that peloton and in this situation, especially on a wet day like this, it's your brain's just working overdrive.
Yeah, it really is. There's just always so much to think about, and also with equipment at the start, there's always umming and ahhing. What are you wearing? What tyre pressure are you going to run, especially when there's cobbles involved and the rain? A lot of the riders now are using a lot lower tyre pressure than they ever used to, because there's been a lot more evidence now to say that actually doesn't make much of a difference in terms of the resistance that then it has onto the road. So I think you're better off safe than sorry, and run a little bit of a lower pressure. You can see Chantal Black here on the left hand side of your screen for the Boels-Dolmans team. It's the first time we've actually seen her in this race, and she's almost kept quiet for over 30 kilometres, which is exactly what to do, isn't it? You know, when you're the leader of the race, she knows what she's doing, and she knows when these roads get narrower, like you say, there's so many different things to contend with in the classics, and I think that's what makes for such exciting racing. You can see the state of these roads here. There's potholes, there's this sort of gutter in the middle of the road, they're narrow, there's sort of muddy puddles on the left. If you just get caught off the road, that could cause carnage, your cobbles, your climbs. There really is something all the time to have to think about, and you need to be so switched on mentally as well as physically. Marjorie's here on the front. You can see bowls are coming together as a team, and I think that's a real key point for other riders. I know for me, when I saw other big teams coming together, you knew that was a time to move and be there at the front.
I don't know, as a rider in a classic like this, but as a sport director, I used to find it exhausting being in
Try
classic
riding as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's bad. Like you'd have to have a lie down at the end sometimes, but you get something in there in that situation. Here comes Boels-Dolmans, Christine Majorus, the champion of Luxembourg. Now they look like they're trying to split this one. You can see now the Mitchelton-Scott riders just scrabbling around, trying to get themselves up there, and we're starting to get some splits now down the back of the peloton. Dani, you get into this open section, and now they get the Boels-Dolmans team are they're looking serious here.
They really are, and this is what I was saying about it's not always about power. If you find yourself in an echelon at the front, then you're happy days. If you're at the back, you could be putting out double the power and be going backwards essentially if you've got no one to protect you from the wind. So the Boels-Dolmans have obviously looked in the road map. They've picked a point where they think it's a potential cross tailwind where they can split the peloton coming into this. This is a very technical part. You've got your downhills, your fast sections, and you can already see gaps happening in the peloton. And if there is a gap and then there is a cobbled section or a climb, half the time then these groups don't come back together, and that's when you see all these splits and essentially breaks throughout the whole race.
You can see Micah Bogart just trying to stay on the back of this group. 88 kilometers to go. The peloton's starting to look fairly serious behind as we head towards the first of those cobblestone sections. Chantal Black was looking good at the front as we get onto that climb. So the hard hook will be the first obstacle that the riders will tackle, and that's a 1900 meter cobblestone section, and the Layberg comes with 81 kilometers to go. That's 900 meters in length, the Layberg. Then the Wolvenberg, which is 600 meters. And now look at this, they're starting to see some gaps now. We're starting to get some echelons potentially just opening up at the front. It looked a little bit more serious from the front there. They're just closing that one down. That looks like Monique Taniglo just bringing that one back together. But you can see just how open it is, swinging left and right through the roads here of Flanders, and that peloton very close now to our trio. And just apologise for our bits of picture breakup if that's hope that's not affecting things you're into too much. As you can tell, the weather conditions that the riders are having to face today also poses its issues for the host broadcasters.
You can see Mitchelton-Scott taking that inside line then to try and come next to the Boels-Dolmans team in the lead into this first cobbled section. This is actually the longest cobbled section of the day, with nearly 2,000 metres long. So I know all these riders will be super nervous to try and get a good position into that, to almost tick it off the box. They'll probably have all the climbs and cobbled sections off their stem. So every time they can get over those in one piece, it's almost a sigh of relief right on to the next. Make sure you get yourself in the right position to then tackle the next one. Almost take it one step at a time rather than thinking too far ahead in these races when so much can happen in the interim. It looked like those three riders were just about to be they were about to be caught, and that'll be a real shame for those three who have really invested in that gap. You can see the gap's only 10 seconds now, and especially when they come into this cobbled section, I think you'll see them being swallowed up.
There's your gap, 10 seconds. So they've gone to the aerial shot there. Let me just take my glass off because I can't read my notes in front of me. Age comes to us, so apologies for that. As I just said momentarily, that the host broadcasters, when you get conditions like this, it does pose some problems. But let's look back through the early part of that race. Big shout out to Dolcini Van Eyck. Nicole Hanselman again, first attacker of the day as she was last year, and that breakaway group kind of in a day like this, you're almost, if you're not got the big favourites, you're almost kind of doomed from the start in a way.
You are, but that was really impressive from the Dolce team there. They obviously had a plan of action from the start. Nicole Hanselman I thought we were going to have a repeat of last year when she caught the men's, but that wasn't meant to be. But they all had counter-attacks straight off the back, and then they found themselves in that move of the day. And unfortunately, they did drop out of that key 3 that we're seeing at the moment, with only about a 10-second gap at the moment. But I think for these teams, it's brilliant to try and be aggressive. It's their real opportunity to get in the break, and anything can happen in bike races, especially races like this where there's just so much to contend with, like we were talking about earlier. So I think fair play to them. I take my hat off to the smaller teams, especially that take these races on and really go for it.
Big shout out though as well to Emily Newsom. What a chase! And again, apologies for our loss of pictures. They're just trying to get them back. It is a host broadcast issue, not our end. But Emily Newsom of the American rider there from Team Tibco. That's just utter determination that you're going to get into that breakaway.
Yeah, it really was, and I don't know exactly how long she was battling to get across for, but it was definitely at least 10-15 minutes. And I think, like I was saying at the time, if she hadn't have made it, that would have been so much of her energy just used up and wasted. So I think that would have been a big sigh of relief when she got across to those 2 riders and made it, and now she has found herself in that group.
Though, looking at on the opening kilometres, our pre-race favourites, they're our Lucinda Brands, Chantal Black, we've just seen starting to come through towards the front. Lorena Wiebes is just being piloted around that peloton, isn't she, towards the front. Anyone that you haven't seen so far? We've not really seen Annemiek Van Vleuten yet, have we? Is anyone else a bit absent? We're going back and we look like we've had a bit of a tumble here. And this is Jip van der Bos here that looks like she's gone down.
Yeah, a few of the key riders here. That looks like Audrey Cordon from the Trek Segafredo team. So we didn't quite see what happened there, but look at how many riders were caught up in that crash, and they need to get back as soon as possible because the race will still be going on without them at the front. Are we going to see a replay potentially here of the crash? On the right hand side of your screen there you can see a tumble. Doesn't look too bad. I think the trees there almost saved them. There was also something on the other side of the road.
Yeah, they look like they went left and right. There's the shot here from the back of that one. So the pace was definitely on that section. Here we go, on to the cobblestone section here, the Haag Hook, 2,000 metres in length. Emily Newsom leading the peloton onto here, but Katusha Bigler, looks like Lizzie Banks just coming through here in the blue, and right behind her the Swiss national champion who's up there. This is the NXTG team. So the Haag Hook, this first cobblestone section, we've been waiting with anticipation for this section. There's such a skill to riding cobblestones quickly, isn't there?
There really is. Getting in a big gear, usually get into the middle of the road where it's generally a bit smoother, and just keep powering through. Ultimately, that's Rosella Ratto there at the back of your screens. And I think for these riders that have crashed, that have found themselves near the back, they just can't panic. The great news for them is that there is about a 15-kilometre section between the Leyberg and the Wolfenberg, which is the next key section. So I do think it will come back together. These top teams will want those riders back in the bunch, which probably will cause a bit of a lull in the peloton once they've got through this cobbled section. This cobbled section will be fast and furious, but once they get out the other side, hopefully there will be a bit of a lull for these riders that have been caught up in the crash.
I always remember Magnus, whenever I first started riding the cobblestones with him, but we used to get out for the classics. He was like, just find the smoothest bit and follow me.
Easier said than done.
Just drift over the cobblestones. Yeah, okay. Christine Major, as you can see, up towards the front here. The Bigler Katusha team being very animated. Marlon Ruser, the Swiss champion, is there. A few riders just struggling on the back here. Emily Wadsworth there from NXTG. That team's got Britt Knaven in there as well, that NXTG team, the daughter of former Paris-Roubaix winner, Servesh Knaven.
Yeah, and it was great he was very sort of animated on, I guess, social media, in the media, about really supporting the women's team. Obviously his daughter races, so he had that interest. Oh dear, Lizzie Banks just missed that bottle there. But yeah, for Emily Wadsworth, this is her first big road race, so it's a pretty tough one to be thrown into as your first. And you did see her struggling there at the back of these cobbled sections, but these riders are the ones that are in the best position of the race now, as we probably enter in the last few meters of this cobbled section. You can see fans there on the side of the road telling the riders to slow down as they get to that left-hand bend and back onto the smooth roads. And it's really weird actually, once you've been riding on cobbles, when you go back onto the road, it feels really, really strange. Once you've been battered around, it's like, it's a real sense of relief to be back on to smooth road. And that's Jip van den Bos there for the Boels team, trying to get back onto the back, and she's one that the Boels team are going to want back in the peloton. She was third last year and a real key component to that team.
Real shame seeing her go down, but now it's one of those situations, as she said, there's a bit of a gap after the Layberg. To potentially try and get in here is just try and use the groups, try and ride the groups, jump from group to group in front of you to try and get back up to the front. But you can see now the difference here, the pressure on. This is the Layberg, so you can see average gradient of 4.2, maximum of 13.8. And Lizzie Banks looking very animated. There's Annemiek Van Vlueten, you can see there on the right of your picture. First time we've seen her in the black gilet with the World Champions jersey just poking out underneath. Ominous sign, Annemiek now coming up towards the front.
She knows how to get over these climbs, doesn't she? And like we were saying about Chantal, you know, it's only 83 kilometres to go now, and this is the first time we've seen her, so she's really saving her energy and she knows where she needs to use it.
So a few of you asking on the socials who's with us today. So it's me, Marty McDonald, if you're with us regular here on GCN Racing. Dani Rowe is alongside me if you were with us last year on GCN Racing, as Van Vleuten takes a Olympic champion, world champion, former road rider as well. With Wow Deals was the last team you raced for with Marianne Vos, a former teammate of Marianne Vos, and we're lucky to have her here on GCN Racing to give her insights into this race today, a race that Dani has done on a number of occasions. Jip van den Bos on the front of this group. Looks like because that Monique Tiniglo that's with her as well.
Yeah,
looks like her style.
Yeah, the tall rider of the Mitchelton-Scott team, and they can really work together. These riders know how to race and use their power to get over this climb, and they don't seem to be too far apart. We did see the main peloton go over this climb just a few moments ago, so I'm sure they will be able to get back on. We saw that there is a feed at the top. They can see groups ahead, so they can use those to just try and get back. Majerus is looking backwards here, so she's not going to put the power down because she knows that her teammate is trying to get back on, so that's really powerful. She's going to use this time to drink, get another bottle from the Soignier there on the side of the road, and just hope that Jip can get back.
This shows Christine such a pro. There's Marta Bastianelli in the Italian Champions jersey. First time that we've seen her today. Christine, so cool, so calm at the front when she took that bowl, had a little glance, see what it was, because the Swannies always put a bit of a marker on it, don't they, whether you've got water, whether you've got any energy drink.
Yeah, she is really cool and calm and collected, and it's just important that she's taken everything into consideration, so she's not just battling it on the front, because she's on the front and that's the best place for her. She's looking back to test, to see where her teammates are, to make sure she's doing the best job she can for the team.
So the Boels-Dolmans riders just trying to maybe take the win. There's Chantal Black just moving up on the left of your picture. Hannah Barnes just coming up as well, the former British champion. You can just see from Canyon SRAM with the British champions cuffs on her jersey.
Eva Berman there for the Boels team in the middle of your screens. That looks like Ord Bianic from the Movistar team now coming to the front.
Chloe Hosking in the centre of your picture in the orange of Rally. As Lorena Wiebes gets brought back up towards the front again by her Park Hotel Valkenburg teammates. Wind blowing across here, 81 kilometres to go. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard. The Wolvenberg is with we've got the Reuter Strat with 68.9 to go. That is they do put it on the route. Then we've got the Wolvenberg is the next serious climb that the riders will tackle, but we're starting to get the groups spread all across the countryside here today. A little close up there of Sarah van der Velde from Cyclotel. There's quite a few new teams that are in here today.
There are, and these riders should really try and be collaborating together to try and get back into the peloton, because there is a strength in numbers here. I think that was Emily Moberg who's just signed for the drops team there. Rihanna Marcus, she's a super strong rider, a great team time trial rider as well, so hopefully she can try and help get these riders in to work together to get back into the group.
Micah Bogard, Eri Yonomine, Jelena Peric is all up towards the front, and up for BTC City Ljubljana. My apologies, is Evgenia Bujak, isn't it? That's up there for LA. Pajero's constantly glancing back on that as they change direction through these different sections. They're just if you're just tuning in, Jip van der Bos, their teammate who was third here last year, going down in a crash, trying to pick her way back through some of the groups behind this main part of the peloton. Sarah Roy there towards the back for Mitchelton-Scott.
She looked pretty relaxed there. You can see by the rider's style and how they're kind of on the bike in terms of how sort of stressed they are. She looked really chilled there. Sarah Roy will be a great teammate for this sort of classics race for Van Vleuten, to make sure she's at the front. She's got everything that she needs. Sarah's a super strong rider. She's actually just come back from injury, but obviously fit enough to race today, and that's good to see. You can see the whole Sunweb team pretty much here at the back, so no one's too worried now with this sort of 15-kilometre section between these really key points in the race, and these are the times where you really should try and conserve energy that you are going to need when these climbs and cobbles come thick and fast.
Is there, when you've got the leaders in there and you've got to try and pace, is it into Geraardsberg and into the bottom of the Muur where you're really trying to get where it's really going to really go off if it hasn't already?
Yeah, I think the Muur is the most important part actually, and then it's almost the group is formed by the Bosberg, and where the Bosberg is quite straight, and the Muur, there's quite a technical fast run into the Muur. You come off a main road and then you go through the town before you turn left onto the sort of pave section, and then right up and over onto the church. It becomes very, very narrow, and I think that's where you're sort of highlighting it on the road book in terms of where you have to be on the front. But that all sometimes doesn't always go to plan. I know for myself, I actually ended up getting caught up in a crash. Everyone's so nervous before that climb because they know it's ultimately where the race can be won and lost. And for me, I had to chase back on, and thankfully I did. So it's not all over, but for sure that's where the riders have to be. At the front, where they can stay out of trouble, get over that climb. There's a technical descent as well off the Muur, so it's not just about the climb, it's about getting over the descent as well with no gaps in front of you.
Gloria Rodriguez Sanchez here from Movistar. Hand up, just trying to stay on the back of the peloton for as long as possible. Still got that big rain jacket on there. We see Alice Barnes just in front, just on the back of the peloton. There's Marta Bastianelli, Italian champion, just so you can see the on the left here, just starting to creep into the picture. There she is, and she what a season last year. She's already started well. She won that one-day Vuelta Valenciana, 11 victories last year for Bastianelli.
Yeah, so impressive, and like you said, she's already started the season off well with a win in the stage in Valencia. And I think because it is Olympic year this year, these riders are going to want to start in the best sort of shape possible. They want to test their season, and also for morale, it's great to go into the first race or the first big classic like we're seeing today and know that the form is there and they just need to build slightly. I think if their form's way off, then that can cause them concern, especially if the Olympics is something of a target, which I do think it will be for Marty and Bastianelli. There is quite a big climb in Tokyo, but nothing too steep that I don't think she could get over. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see where her form is in this classic style race today, and if she can carry on the season that she had last year, then she'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with, and definitely a favourite for the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, last year, as you say, she won Tour of Flanders, she won Hageland, she won in Drenthe, she was second in Dwars-Door-Vlaanderen as well. So she's such a solid classics rider. We just saw Ellen van Dijk just putting on a gilet. Ruth Winder, the American champion, also doing the same. It must be difficult when you're getting these big downpours and then you're getting the crosswinds that are just beating you, to try and keep some sort of warmth. You're constantly jacket on, jacket off, gloves on, gloves off.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely better to be a bit warm than a bit cold, because once you're really cold, it's really hard to warm up again, especially if it's rained and you have got wet. Still with over 2 hours of racing to go, you don't want to be losing energy with your body trying to stay warm. So it's important that if you do get a chance to put more layers on, as we were seeing the American rider Ruth Winder there trying to get her rain jacket back on, as you're hearing the squeaks of the brakes now, with Alice Barnes in the British national champs jersey of Canyon SRAM in the middle of the peloton, and she's another good one of being able to conserve energy and know where she needs to be in the bunch. Riders using this opportunity before the real sort of racing kicks off to fuel up and make sure that they've got enough energy in when it gets super tough.
It's the Cyclotel colours, so you're going to be seeing a lot of new colours. So now back to the front of the peloton, and the next objective for the riders, the cobblestone sections and Ruterstraat, and then we go on to the climb of the Wolvenberg. Chantal Black in the centre of your picture.
Looks like Ord Bianic, I think, from the Movistar team, with a few of the Canyon SRAM riders.
Chloe Hosking just moving up on the left of your picture in the orange. She's been very, very vigilant, very much to the fore here, has the Aussie today.
Yeah, definitely. She is normally really good at positioning herself well and knowing when to be at the front to give herself the best chance, essentially, of getting over these climbs, which is her weakness, being a pure sprinter. But if she's there at the end, then she's definitely got to be one of the favourites in the sprint.
In terms of like 1 days, because you with the Commonwealth Games, if you for anyone that's not from the Commonwealth countries, but the Commonwealth Games 1 day road race as well, where you were in that group coming into the finish with Chloe, so she can do those. She can bring it out on her, and it was quite a hilly course, that Commonwealth course. Yeah,
it was, and it was actually a course with a lot of laps, and there was 2 significant climbs in the course, and it was kind of an almost classic type course, a bit of criterium style, short, steep climbs, nothing too long, which wouldn't work in her favour. And she was in the shape of her life. She had a great team around her, and she won that Commonwealth medal, and I was third. But yeah, she's proven that if she focuses on something, then she can really be an all-rounder as well as a sprinter.
When you see Trixie Worrack for the first time in a race, I always just want to go, legend, don't you? When you see her for the first time, good to see her just towards the back here for that Trek Segafredo team. And Trixie, as I say, such a legend. And I know from Eleanor Backstead and those young riders that are going into that Trek Segafredo team. I've seen Shirin Van Anrooy that's in there training with that team. What a team of as these young riders that Trek Segafredo are signing. What better mentors to have than the likes of Lucinda Brand, Ellen Van Dijk and Trixie Worrack. Yeah,
it's an incredible opportunity for those riders to just learn so much off these girls who have been through the evolution of cycling, essentially. They know where to be, what training they need to do, and how to ride as a team. I think for the younger riders coming through, like Eleanor Backstead, she's probably used to being so super strong that she probably wouldn't have had to have ridden in this sort of team dynamic before, and she's going from winning the junior races to now being in a team where I guess a lot of the time now she will be used as a domestique, but to learn off the likes of Trixie is a real great opportunity. And similar to me actually, coming from the track onto the road and then being in a team with Marianne Vos, it was just incredible to be able to learn so much from her. And you know, these riders are such lovely people as well, and obviously that makes a huge difference if you feel comfortable riding and asking for advice when maybe you think it's a stupid question, but these riders are always out to try and help, which is really good. Kai, you're seeing the force of the Sunweb team there. That's always a worrying sign when the whole of the Sunweb team are coming to the front. You know that there's going to be a potential crosswind. I remember it was in the Tour of Norway, and they all came to the front like this, and then suddenly they turned left and it split to pieces. They worked so well together in a sort of echelon formation, and that was the end of that stage. So yeah, whenever someone gets to the front, be scared.
It's the red, isn't it? It's like that sea of red that comes through towards the front.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, what a team they've got here today, Luce, in terms of what they can do in this. Could it be a day for the likes of Corin Rivera? Floortia Mackay is a phenomenal rider for that team. There she is in the centre of your picture. Now trying to lead this out here, Team Sunweb. Ellen Van Dyke still there. There's Alice Barnes, the British champion. So you can see her with that bright white jersey. Still looking quite white, that jersey as well, compared to the conditions.
Yeah, I'm not sure how white it will stay. I hope she's got good washing powder, because definitely throughout the classic season it's going to get very mucky.
Okay, predictions. If you want to make a prediction, who's going to get this one today? Who are you going for, Dani, today? 74k out. We've got to do it early. You can have an alternate as well. You can have an out and out favourite. You can have an outsider as well.
Okay, my out and out favourite, I'm going to go with Bastianelli.
Oh, I was just about to say that.
Oh, sorry. And then my out and out, my sort of outsider chance, I'm going to go with Lorena Vives.
Okay. Right, just took my pick now. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go Lucinda Brand as my favourite, coming in off a successful cross season. She's done well in the cross, and my outsider, looking around the front of this group, picking out a young rider. I'm gonna Come on. I know. I've just got to go for it, really, haven't I? That I've got to pick out. If she. Can I have Chloe Hosking as my outsider? Okay, I'll go as that. She's my second choice.
You can see her there now, actually, in the middle of your screen in the rally kit.
I wasn't sure if I had to go young rider, you see, in terms of, not that Chloe's not young, but do you know what I mean? I didn't know whether I could have her as my second favourite then. Okay, so there we go. Get your predictions in, and so Bastianelli and Weavis is Dani's tips for today. Still, we're in a very much bit of a holding pattern now. We've had those early breakaway groups. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us here today on GCN Racing. Live line-to-line action here of the Elite Women's Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Chantal Black, the winner last year. It was Black who won it alone, 1 minute and 9 ahead of Marta Bastianelli and Jip van der Bos. Annemiek van Vlueten was up there in 4th last year, and it was very much early on in the day. It was that Dolcini Van Eyck team that really set things going, with Nicole Hanselman being the first attacker of the day. Christina Schweinberger was also up there. We had that breakaway of Femke Marcus, Micah Bogard, and Emily Newson doing a phenomenal job for Team Timco to get back on. But Team Sunweb now look like they're starting to drive this one on the front. 73k to go.
They are obviously about to turn. Yeah, I predicted that, either into a climb, cobbled section, a narrowed part of the course, or somewhere where they know it's going to be crosswinds. Look at this, there's been a crash in the middle of the bunch. These riders are going to be caught so far behind. They have no momentum now. They've almost got to do a standing start into this narrow road, and that's why these teams are so good time and time again. Unfortunately now Emily Moberg, who's come from the Virtue team over to drops, and rider
Van Vleuten, Annemiek Van Vleuten at the side of the road. So this is not what the world champion would want here, trying to get her chain back on, and this is the issue that you can see here as well. Riders trying to come back through the team cars. There's the Mitchelton-Scott team car, and you can hear the panic on the horn here from the director sportif of Mitchelton-Scott as Annemiek tries to get back on. Let's have a look at the head-on shot here. So all coming together. Let's have a look at the corner. And Annemiek Van Vleuten was trying to get that chain back on. And now she's got a chase. So the world champion.
I'm surprised no one's actually come back for her. I would have thought that the Mitchelton-Scott team would have had a kind of a chat to say if Annemiek is in any sort of trouble, then one specific rider would wait with her. But I think in that sort of panic, and you can sometimes get caught out and you're in so much of your own world that you're just focusing on getting through that key section. And they have now gone on to another cobbled section. This is the Wolfenberg now that they've just come onto, and the peloton is starting to split up.
So you can see Christine Majerus just on the front, just managing the line on the cobblestones. As the Mitchelton-Scott riders, you can see just up towards the front to try and control this one. They'll know that Annemiek Van Vleuten has gone down, and here she is just trying to get back on to the peloton.
She's not panicking, she's just using this car now to try and get her way back through the convoy and onto the back of this group. I'm very confident that she's going to get back on.
Chantal Black hits the front for Boels-Dolmans. You can see as we just sweep through that section there. And apologies for a bit of picture freeze. The issues today with the weather, and you're back with us. Apologies. Annemiek Van Vleuten, you would say disastrous for the world champion, but as you said, no panic by her.
Yeah, especially at this stage, I think with still, 70 kilometres to go, I think there's still a lot of time for her to get back on. I think the biggest problem is now she is using that sponge, as I was talking about before. She's using energy where, that could be helped, essentially. It's not pure energy that she's using to attack or to try and get a group away in the front that she's formed. It's something that's been a case of potentially bad luck, bad positioning, and a problem with her bike where she's going to have to use that energy now just to get back into the race. It's
one of those days, though, isn't it? And we've been lucky to see line to line today, right from the rollout, the sort of nervous energy that you must have to use to constantly stay at the front of the peloton in these conditions on these roads.
Yeah, and I think it's even more heightened today because it is the first race back. It's the first race in Europe, and it is a classic, and we're seeing so many different elements of the race, from the road furniture, cars to navigate round, gutters in the middle of the road, cobbled sections, narrow roads, and again, everyone's so nervous. They haven't raced in a bunch for a few months now. The weather conditions, there really is something all the time to contend with. So yeah, it's a really nervous race, and I think the riders will be pleased to sort of have these small groups formed, especially if they're at the front, of course.
Now, one question I had on the chat, it's clicked through, but it was asking the difference on a day like this, and I know it's a technical question that people ask all the time on these sort of conditions, is the difference in stopping between the rim brakes and disc brakes. It's these sort of days where the disc brakes are and their introductions become an advantage?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of riders are very open to the fact that the disc brakes are a lot more responsive, and I think especially in the wet, I definitely choose to use disc brakes over rim brakes. I think the problem comes when there's that difference in the peloton. So some riders can basically stop a lot quicker than others, and that's where I guess the controversy lies in terms of the safety of everyone in the peloton if there's that difference between the two.
Any team in particular that you can see are looking around that are looking really solid at the moment? We've seen somewhere very much sort of riding, and they do ride, don't they, very much as a unit within the peloton.
Yeah, I think they always have. They're really impressive. I think the problem with Sunweb is potentially that they can't take it all the way to the line. So they ride fantastically throughout the race. Bowls have shown to be starting this really well. Also Bigler, you're seeing them as a unit quite a lot throughout from the start of this race today, and it's just interesting to see the different dynamics with the different team compositions. We've got Lucinda Brand moving over from Sunweb to Trek. I think Trek on paper looks like the strongest team, but it's whether they put those strong riders together and actually ride well as a unit, and it'll be interesting to see, when we really get into the crux of this race in a few kilometres' time, in terms of which teams are coming together at the beginning of 2020.
There you have it. There's a few little bits of sun today, just poking out there. That'll be that's nice. Nice to see. And apologies there for our momentary picture breakup. You can see the post broadcaster just getting us back into pictures now, and it's Team Sunweb and Boels-Dolmans.
Looks like Suzanne Anderson there on the front for Team Sunweb, followed by Marjaroos. I think Julia Sook was the third Sunweb rider, and they'll probably be really motivated to get this group going now. If you're in a smaller group at the front, it's always easier to navigate yourself around, and this is Van Vleuten finding herself onto the back of this group. I think this is actually just a small group that had crashed previously in the race, so I don't think this is the start of the race, the front of the race.
Apologies for the issues that you're coming back to us. We're doing our best to sort that out. You can see the host broadcast is kind of switching from coverage back to the helicopter, but Annemiek Van Vleuten just coming back into the back of the group there. We heard her in that interview before, and it was really interesting. I loved catching up with her in the beginning of the week, but we saw last year so dominant in things like the Giro Rosa, but she's trying to decide how her season's going to go, and she really seems like she's targeting these classics.
Yeah, it seems like she's targeting everything actually. But she really is a standout rider, and she does almost stand out from everyone, but I personally believe it's because she puts herself out there and she does different training, she does different things, and she's obviously so clued up about her body in terms of saying that year on year she has to stress her body in a different way, because otherwise your body will just get used to that training stimulus. And that's what I try to do as a coach, give my riders different things to do throughout the winter and a different, training stress to make sure that they are still improving, because ultimately you just get used to, your body gets used to what it knows. So I thought that was interesting, and that she's been training with the men, and I follow a lot of riders on social media, and I think she is the only person that, almost went on the Mitchelton-Scott men's team training camp. You've got riders that are husbands or boyfriends with professional riders. Floortje Mackay is with Dylan van Baal, for example, from Team Ineos. So they will have that sort of stress of getting out there with these amazing male riders that will push them on. But I think with Annemiek van Vleuten, she is actually proactively going onto their camps. So she's doing 200-kilometre rides day in, day out. She was saying in that interview she's being pushed on the climb, she's going faster. So I'm sure she will be one of the key riders to look for this year, and especially with Tokyo. Although she did say in that interview that she's taking one race at a time, and she wants to get this classic season done because she is targeting every single one. So I do think it's important to say she's never been on the podium in this race before, so that's almost an added motivation, I think, for her, being an older rider in the peloton and having achieved so much. I think with these races that she actually has never been on the podium or ever won before, that gives her motivation to do well to win this race.
You can see the aerial shot, 68 kilometres to go. We're being shown here. Head of the race onto the cobblestones. This should be the Reuterstraat that we are getting onto. Team Sunweb. It's the Kirkgate, rather, as we've jumped into. So let's looking at the distances here. Suzanne Anderson from Team Sunweb is on the front, just looking around this group, just to see who's still in there. Let's have a look at the back of the group. So we'll just see who's battling to try and get back into this one here.
And this is really savage, you know, with still 67 kilometres to go. You saw a rider there on the side of the road having problems with her bike. You know, you really don't want to be dropped at this stage. And look at that, there's literally groups all over the road now with the riders trying to get back into this front peloton. That looked like Lotte, Pista, or now she's married actually. Hentala from the Trek team. And Van Vleuten, look at the big gear that she's pushing over these cobbles. She's trying to find the smoothest part of the road on the left hand side, and she's just picking these riders off one by one to try and get her way back to the front.
You can see rolling that big gear as well, Annemiek Van Vleuten, who's rolling through there. And then the apologies for the picture freeze. The host broadcaster. The start today in Ghent down to Ninove. I was over there last year. Went over and I was did the host on the men's race. But the atmosphere in Ghent for the presentation in the velodrome was absolutely unbelievable. I was walking down there in the morning from my hotel, and I saw a guy with a shopping trolley, and he had full DJ set on the front and a set of speakers in his shopping trolley, and it was absolutely an atmosphere to behold in there.
Yeah, I remember the presentation actually. It was almost like a real party atmosphere. You know, it was really dark, lights, music, everyone around the velodrome, just to make us even more nervous before the start.
The aerial shot through the Kirk gates with 65.7 to go. Then the Jägerei is with 63.1 to go. Look down through the groups here. And Janelle Crooks 2:11, so they're just focusing on the back of the peloton at the moment, just to see where Annemiek Van Vleuten is. But you can see the Mitchelton-Scott riders on at the front, just trying to maybe take the pressure off a little bit. They'll be getting a nod from the team car, and as to where Annemiek is. As you said, I'm surprised they haven't sent riders back to try and find her.
Yeah, I am, especially someone like Sarah Rowe, who could, you know, do a fantastic job to try and get her back. You know, super strong rider over the cobbles, and you can just see how savage those cobbles are. You know, the riders are really rocking and rolling all over the place, and I think that's why, you know, these classics does favour the bigger rider, the more powerful rider, because, you know, if you're sort of that under 50 kilogram mark, which I actually think Annemiek Van Vleuten is, although very strong, which maybe counteracts that, then you just get thrown to pieces, and that's why it favours the riders more like, you know, Marta Bastianelli, the favourites that we've been talking about, Chantal Black, Lucinda Brand, who know how to ride these cobbles, and again as well on the men's side, your bigger riders are your classic riders. So yeah, I think I am surprised that they haven't sent a rider back for Van Vleuten.
And this is the run in towards the finish. So in terms of if it comes down to a group sprint, there's a few corners leading into this finisher straight. It's got a little curve round to the left as well. It wasn't a problem last year because Chantal Black was on her own.
Yeah, I think that was a really, you know, a real great move from Chantal Black, going off on the Muur and then holding on until the finish line. Especially with a downhill running, I think that definitely favours someone who goes off the front solo. But there are quite a few corners in the lead-in in the last kilometre, and a lot of these teams would have done recons of the course to make sure they know exactly what's coming up in the lead-ins to either the cobbles or the climbs, or essentially the finish, which is the most important. If you don't know what's coming up, it's really hard to know when to time your sprint for the team and your team sprinter. And a lot of the teams will have talked about who is going to drop what rider off at what stage. So it could be that someone like Margeroos would start early with, say, a kilometre to go, and then, you know, your faster sprinters are left towards the end with your final Chloe type rider to try and finish it off for the team. But yeah, it's just something else to contend with. But you need to do a recon a lot of the time. If you haven't got the opportunity to do that, a lot of the riders will go on Google Earth and really try and do your homework. And I found that the more homework I did, the more confident I was going into the race, that I really knew what was coming up, and it was just something else that you almost had under your wing.
Thanks to all of you for getting on board. Apologies for our momentary loss of pictures. So as you can see, when you get shots of the finish line and the helicopter shot, they're busily pulling cables out and drying them off and trying to get everything to work. So my apologies for the momentary loss of pictures. Thanks for saying hi. And Marty McDonald and Dani Rowe with you today. Thanks for get your predictions in for who is going to win today. Little shout out to Owen Rogers watching on the Eurotunnel. Get pictures under the sea. That's amazing. You can't get pictures from the bike race and a helicopter, but you can watch GCN racing under the sea. Scott Herman, thanks for checking in over on Twitter as well. Thanks for saying hi. Keith McRae as well. Lucas Knopfler, thanks for saying hi on Twitter as well. Great to have you all with us. So if you have got a prediction, will Annemiek Van Vlueten get back on, smash it up the Muur and win? That's the question that we're all asking.
I think she'll get back on. I think she'll smash it up the Muur, but my prediction is that she's not going to win.
Okay. The run down towards the finish. So still plenty of obstacles. We are back. So the head of the race, 63 kilometres to go. Sometimes that can be, they do their best to keep an eye on here. The Jägerei here, 800 metres of cobblestones this section. They keep going back to pictures as best they can. So our apologies for this. We are line to line here on GCN Racing. In the weather, you can see is playing havoc with the broadcast today. And if you ever get the chance, and I'm doing this a long time, when you ever get the chance where you get to a race and watch the live broadcast and what it takes to get the live broadcast, because it's not like a stadium sport like football or rugby or anything like that. So just have a wander around and you can usually get a glimpse of the back of the outside broadcast truck, because you've got your motorbikes that have got an antenna on the back which is being bounced off a plane in the sky which just circles the race. So on days like this when you've got low cloud and you can't get sometimes the plane can't fly, or they have to try and bounce it off a helicopter, and sometimes you're trying to get pictures from 100, 200 kilometers away, so sometimes you have to have an interim satellite dish in the middle, so the motorbikes will bounce it up to the plane, back down to the satellite truck in the middle, back up to the plane, and sometimes Tour de France, they have two planes circle and then back down to the finish. So it's quite a complex thing, and the cameras when you get in towards the finish are all cabled. So they've run cables for the last kilometre, and all those cameras are all cabled. That's why you'll go back to your finish and you'll get cabled shots in the finish, and all those cables and everything, and the satellite trucks, and they all just plug into the back of the OB truck. So it's quite a complex thing trying to bring a bike race. So especially on days like this. But it's not there with you, a few people with an iPhone just trying to film it.
Very technical.
And then all that goes up to the satellite in space and back down. It's even more complex, isn't it? Bonkers.
And we did just get a very, very brief shot of what looked like Fleuten Mackay again on the front four. Team somewhere there, a very reduced bunch at the front, and I think it will just be split to bits now. I can't see a huge sort of peloton coming back together, because these climbs and these cobbled sections do come in quick succession, sort of within 10 kilometers of each other, and that's where these gaps will just get bigger and bigger, especially when you have got the stronger riders at the front. I think Van Vleuten will get back, and she's going to pick her way through these groups, and you are just seeing here the convoy is that of riders. Or maybe that was just traffic, I'm not sure.
So apologies for our loss of pictures. So they are doing their best to try and get them back to you. So thanks for bearing with us today. If you've got any questions for Dani Rowe alongside me, it's she held the Q&A for an hour last year and during the Colorado Classic, so she can take a Q&A. We were throwing everything that we could at Dani last year in Colorado Classic. So with 62 kilometers to go, the next target will be the Molenberg 400-meter climb, average gradient of 6.2%. We're back down to this group, this peloton. Each time we dive in there, we'll circle around just to make sure that we can try and make out as many riders as we can. Looks like Corin Rivera just in front of our is that Marcus, the rider from CCC Live here.
It looks like Rihanna Marcus and Soraya Paladin, I believe, at the back there for the CCC Live team there. Just Rihanna Marcus is such a great domestic rider. I hope she gets some more opportunities for herself this year in the team. And it's always a hard one that, you know, you've got really strong riders in their own rights, riders like Rihanna Marcus and Christine Majerus, who almost set themselves as these super domestiques, but they are strong enough in their own rights, and it's just all about them hopefully being able to take opportunities within races where they might find themselves in a break which they can get a result from for themselves when they work so tirelessly for the whole team throughout the season.
Back to the front. Winder just moving up on the right of your picture here. Annemiek Van Vlueten is back. There she is, the world champion, sitting there in that with the white jersey. You can see with the black gilet. Oudbianiek on the extreme right of your picture for Movistar, and then Lizzie Banks just moving up. Marta Bastianelli, that you can see, the Italian champion, very much to the front of this one. Good recovery there from Van Vleuten. You wouldn't really expect anything less.
No, you wouldn't. And you see this group is pretty big now. It's really coming back together, although strung out here on this narrow section of road. But it's interesting to see a lot of the riders in the front are on their drops, and that just shows that there is obviously speed, and aggression in the front of this peloton now. They're trying to get as aero as possible to try and take advantage of this power that they're putting out and not wasting any through, just having a big surface area essentially if they're on the tops of their handlebars.
Yeah, Grace Brown very much to the front for Mitchelton-Scott. Yeah, the water playing in the gremlins in the machine today. We're trying to get the pictures from the motorbikes out on the course. Winder out of the saddle, but Bieni just latches onto the wheel of the American champion. Chantal Black on your left there for Boels-Dolmans. Bastianelli, Majerus all getting themselves up towards the front. 60 kilometres to go.
That was a good move by Oudbianiek there behind Ruth Winder. She sort of used Ruth to get to the front herself, and it's important to be attentive and to look for ways to save energy. If you want to try and get to the front, rather than using all your strength and power to do it alone, look for other riders that are also keen to get to the front and try and latch onto them when they make a move.
Yeah, making it really hard today here. And there's Lorena Wiebes, you can see the Dutch national champion. Hannah Barnes up very much up towards the front of this one for Canyon SRAM. Riders behind it just negotiating their way. The truck on the side. So some of the newer teams. So this is Kylie Waterhouse here from the Multum Accountants LSK team. She's been sat on the back of that group for as long as she could here.
Back to the finish line. These weather conditions are causing havoc, unfortunately, for our pictures today. I think as we head towards the Molenberg, which is 400 metres at 6.5%, and it's also cobbled, so there's another element to this climb. It's hard enough without the cobbles, and they're throwing the cobbles in there as well. You could actually see in the last set of pictures Chloe Hoskin from Rally was still very much in there, so she's given herself the best chance for a result today.
She has indeed. So we'll go from the Molenberg, so that's the climb, comes with 56.9 to go. Hopefully they'll be able to get back out and see that. That's, as Dani said, that's a cobble climb. We'll then move on to the Reckelberg. We've got the Paderstraat, which is a 2,300 metre cobbled section, which comes with 51.9 to go. So the Paderstraat that comes after 71 kilometres. Then it's the Reckelberg. Then the climbs come in quite fast succession after that. It'll be the Reckelberg, the Berendries, the Elverenberg, which is the Vossenhol, the Ten Boss, which comes with 31.9 to go. Then on to the Eikenmolen. Then we'll have that run into Geraardsbergen for the Muur Kapelmuur, and then over the top of that one and back into the Bosberg, and we are on the climb here, and it's Chantal Black that moves through to the front. Floortje Mackay is there, as Marta Bastianelli, Ruth Winder, Hannah Barnes, all very much to the front. The Molenberg, you can see here, is at a maximum gradient of 14.2%, so 10% into 14.2, 463 metres in length. Lizzie Banks as well towards the front.
She's having a great ride. I'm really impressed actually by Lizzie Banks, because she hasn't had many opportunities to ride in these sorts of races, and she's only been on the scene for a couple of years, coming from America and the Timco team, so she hasn't done a lot in Europe. She had a fantastic year last year. She's picked up by the British team to ride the World Championships, and she's having another great day today. I rode with her for the European Champs, and she was fantastic. A super strong rider. I know she puts the work in, and that's apparent to see that she's obviously in good form again for this season.
Marta Bastianelli has a look back. This group getting smaller. Ellen van Dijk is just on the back of the group here.
Yip van den Bos, so she has got herself back into this group. So Chantal Black will be pleased to have her around. Yip was third last year, obviously Chantal winning. You've got Jana Korova, so it's the same names, isn't it, again and again that we're seeing. Marta Bastianelli, Van Vleuten, Ruth Winder. You know, from your top 10, you've got about 6 of them here in the top 10 of your race. You can see Ellen van Dijk towards the back of this group as well. So it's the same riders that we're seeing year upon year who know how to ride and where to ride in these races.
Annemiek van Vlueten going for a bottle there, not getting it on that occasion. It becomes a bit of an art, doesn't it, when you're handing up your bottles, and it becomes so important at this level to try and get it right. This front group very much made up of all our pre-race favourites, as far as we can see.
It's really important for these riders not to give up either, because you can think at this sort of stage, I'm never going to get back on the front, but it only takes a little lull in the front peloton, and these riders can get back on, a change in wind direction as well. So these riders need to keep battling on. You can see how open and exposed this particular section is, and it really is a game of sort of mental strength as well as physical strength to be able to keep pushing and pushing when ultimately all you can see is this big long road ahead of you with no shelter from the wind. Although this windmill doesn't seem to be turning, although I'm not sure that's a sign of how windy it is or not, because we know that there is wind out there today for sure.
This group, you can see just the narrow roads, they're kind of almost being sheltered from the wind in that little gap there.
They are. There's a Lotto Soudal rider at the front. I'm hoping that's not Abby May Parkinson, who I coach. I'm hoping she's in this front group, tucked away somewhere. I haven't seen her yet. But again, they're not too far off the back. There's one rider here battling to try and get back on. She's almost better off waiting for this bigger group behind and latch onto them, rather than trying to waste all her energy in between, sort of in no man's land. I think these two groups will come back together, and you will see quite a significant group there going into the next climb, which is the Paddestrap.
Is that Jean Korova, did you say, that's up towards the front?
Yes, it is. She's wearing a cap and she's got clear glasses, really tall rider, and again she was, I believe, 6th or 7th last year in this race. I was with her coming into the finish of the front group of about 25 in 2018. So yeah, I'd love for her to get a really good result.
Boels-Dolmans very much looking to set this up. Their team today: Chantal Black, Eva Bierman, Christine Majerus, Lonica Uniken, Jep van der Bos and Skylar Schneider. That was the team going into this one. No Anna van der Breggen for the Boels-Dolmans team today. Annemiek van Vleuten issue. She's found her way back. Bastianelli, the Italian champion. There's a few riders back here. You can see that Italian champion's jersey. It's Van der Bos kicks on at the front. Little gap just opening up through there.
Yeah, she looked back there and saw she had a gap, so she's just almost chilling over the top of these undulating roads. And it's a real sort of strength in numbers game when you're coming into the last sort of 50 kilometres of the race. The more numbers you've got in the team, the more cards you can play. So I think for Boels, they've got a few riders in there. I'm not sure how many teammates Van Vleuten actually had at this stage. It's quite hard to see, especially with these conditions. But the more numbers you've got at the front, the more confident you can be that when the counter-attacks come, you've got someone to follow.
So, got one.
Yeah, is that Grace Brown? It's really hard to pick these riders out actually at the front. You can see Marta Bastianelli there in the iconic Italian national champs kit. Yep, just getting rid of a bottle now, and that's another sort of key part of these races. You know, you don't want to be carrying any extra weight over these climbs. You can see Lorena Vives on the left hand side being brought up by her teammate here.
Chloe
so she's
Hoskin
very
still
much
there
in the
as well.
race. Chloe Hoskin is still in the race, although with still a lot of climbing to go. But she's obviously in a great position so far. That's Soraya Paladin, I think, from the CCC Live team there, just battling to try and get back into some sort of contention. Riders looking around, you know, who's going to share the work, and the problem is with that is if you lose, you know, you're almost wasting time. If everyone's looking at each other, by the time you suss out who is going to chase back or who's going to collaborate in this chase group, you've lost another 5-10 seconds, and it just becomes harder. You've got a lot of FDJ riders, 4 FDJ riders in that group, so they really need to take the bull by its horns and just get to the front and commit as a team, because otherwise essentially they're going to really lose out.
Christine Majoris back on the front here. This is the Bosch de Kooterstraat, which is there at 380 metres, and one that they didn't have on the road book.
They didn't, so a nice little surprise there. The riders will be thinking, oh, it's an extra one. But I'm sure they've done their homework. I'm sure they know about it. And you can see Marjorie here. There's a bottle going flying. That's another nice part about being in a smaller group, to not have to try and navigate around 100 bottles going flying from these cobbles. It's also about having the confidence. It looks like if this is Soraya Paladin here, she's just sort of laying off this group on the cobbles. And Alice Barnes there from Canyon SRAM in the British colours, trying to get back to this front group.
Question from Jessica Nodsing: do you miss racing on a day like this?
Part of me doesn't, part of me doesn't. This was a race that I really, really enjoyed. My best result was 7th in this race in 2017, and then I actually tried to help Jana in a lead out in the front group in 2018. So I think you do associate races in terms of how much you like them with how well you did on the day. So because I did have good days in this race, I did love it, and I do miss it. I think in the races where you really, really suffered, or you might have crashed, and then you kind of look back on them and think, oh, I'm glad I never have to do that again. So part of me does wish that I was there, but I still hold by the decision being the right one for me to stop when I did. I still love bike riding. I'm passionate about cycling, and I never wanted to get to the point where I hated the sight of the bike. I love being involved now, especially in this increased coverage of women's cycling. So now I can just sort of sit back. I'm trying to stay super fit, riding and doing other things, but I love still, you know, being a real fan of women's cycling, and it's great to be here today for this first classic.
On to just going from the cobblestones, just trying to find a little bit of smooth tarmac along the side. So you just picking out a few of our riders that are in there: Chantel Black, Jip van der Bos, Annemiek van Vlueten, Ruth Winder, Christine Majeras, Lorena Wiebes, Ian Korova, Chloe Hosking, Aude Bionique, and we've got Rousseau, the Swiss champion, Mackay, Jonna Mine. I'll try and get a full rundown. Grace Brown on the front. It's Jelena Erich. Just gets dropped off the back of the group. Is this Amelia Farlene as well, just in this group?
Yeah, this looks like a really, really tough part of the course. You can just see a drops rider just in front there, and some riders are using the gutter, the smoother part of the road, and then others are just choosing to battle it out on the cobbles. And it's just about weighing that up, really, if you're getting stuck behind riders in the gutter, or whether you could actually move up on the cobbles if you're strong enough to.
Christine Majoris on the front, starting to up the tempo. If you've been with us from the start of the race today, Christine, a rider that we said we can never ever discount her as well. But it's Chantel Black, the former world champion, in the orange here, just moving up towards the wheel of her teammate, who has got a rider down here on the side of the road from Valcar. Didn't quite catch a glimpse of who that was, but the Boels-Dolmans team now starting to look serious at the front here with Majeras and Chantel Black.
They really are, and Majeras is just proving everything we've been saying right in terms of how good she is as a domestique. She's doing all the work here for Chantal Black. I know Chantal likes to stay at the front of bike races, and this is what Christina Majerus is helping with here. She's essentially guiding the way for her up these cobbled sections, and you can see how strong she is, because there's even small sort of gaps in this small group here at the front. You've got Floortje Mackay on the left for the Sunweb team. She's been up there. Lizzie Banks is still there for the Bigler team. Ruth Winder, who we know's had a really good start to the season already, winning in Australia, so she's on fine form. Bastianelli's already won in Valencia, and it looks like a problem here for the Park Hotel rider. And these groups just trying to do everything they can to close these gaps and get back into contention.
It looked like Brodie Chapman towards the back of the group. The attacks going in at the front. This group just getting whittled down under the pressure constantly of Boels-Dolmans and Team Sunweb. Cobblestones, this section here, 51 kilometres to go. This is the Paderstraat. It's the section of cobblestones that we are on here. Erion and Mine just getting dropped off the back of the group under that pressure.
That looks like Julia Souk, I believe, off the Sunweb team now, just trying to put some power down in this front group and potentially split it up again. Going into this section of the race, Majerus is staying calm and slowly closing this gap up to the Sunweb rider with Chantal Black on her wheel.
So Lizzie Banks still in that group behind as well, as well as Marta Bastianelli. Closes it down. We're starting to get this group down to about maybe 12 riders. Chloe Hosking on the back.
Yeah, it looks like this group's actually just kind of split in half. You can see a few more riders just trying to hang on the back there. In the back of the shot there's probably, yeah, like you say, 10-15 riders. Chloe Hosking there in the middle, Jana Korova, Ord Bianic at the back for Movistar team. You really have got all the key players here. Ellen van Dijk from the Trek Segafredo team, and then 3 riders just at the back of the screen there trying to get across to this group, which could be the final move of the day. There are splits that are quite close, so depending on the collaboration between the teams, who they've got at the front or who they haven't got at the front might depend on whether they get back to this group or not.
Major just has a glance over the shoulder, so Bigler Katusha, got a couple of riders in there. Team Sunweb, plenty of options. Is that Hannah Barnes rather, just swinging out to the side there, looked like her style. 50 kilometres to go here in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. And again, excuse our momentary picture freeze that we have. The host broadcaster having a few issues. Back with us, sorry, 50 kilometres to go. And we're back, sorry, jumping back into us. Thanks for all your patience today. We really do appreciate it. And you can see the host broadcasters are having the issues. This front group, though, Dani, really is getting down to that real select few. All those riders pretty much that we put on the riders to watch are all up there. And that's something in itself.
Yeah, it really is, and I do think this is going to be the key move. I think the small groups behind will latch onto this key group here that we're seeing at the front, but essentially when we come into these real sort of close succession of climbs and cobbled sections, we're going to see it split again, and it is these key riders that we were talking about at the start. Bastianelli, haven't actually seen Lucinda Brown. I'm not sure if she's still there. I know she was your pick for today. I know Ellen van Dijk's there. She's got Ruth Winder as a teammate for the Trek Segafredo team. Boels are really taking this on. Majerus and Chantal Black have been the 2 that have really been at the front of this group, really trying to drive it forward to make sure that the efforts of this group getting away, stay away. Lizzie Banks has really impressed me from the Bigler team. I think she might be out there on her own, if not with one other teammate. And I was actually just about to say I didn't think Canyon SRAM had a rider, but we did just see Hannah Barnes there, a British rider, on the left-hand side of your screen, just getting over to that front group. So I think she could be a great rider for today, and obviously is in good form. And that's also really interesting, you know, the first race of the season, the first classic, it's such a test of form. And yes, there can be bad luck, but essentially if you're in that front group, you know you've got good legs, and that's going to really help then for the rest of the season.
Annemiek Van Vlueten, she had that chase back. It's Annemiek Van Vlueten. Is it going to hurt? Is it going to hurt the legs at all?
I think it would have hurt, you know. I was saying at the start, you know, you never want to use energy like that, especially with, I think it was around 70 kilometres to go. She is back in the front group. Whether that will have a bearing on how she now finishes the race, I'm not sure. Probably not. You know, she's been training with the Mitchelton-Scott guys of up to 200 kilometres. This is only 123 kilometres. Although I do think you find that women's racing can be a lot more fast and furious and aggressive because of that. Shorter distance of the race, and we're seeing such a select group. You can really see Van Vleuten is just on the left hand side of your screen there in the Mitchelton-Scott vest with her world champ stripes, just getting out the saddle here before we get to the next section.
48 kilometres to go. Thanks for joining us here today on GCN Racing. Thanks for your patience. We really do appreciate it. As you can see, it's a host broadcast. Issues the loss of pictures. Is that Abby May just on the outside there?
That is Abby May. Wow, I'm very impressed. I'm very proud, coach. That is Abby May. Wow, that's really nice to see. It looks like actually quite a big group are behind. It looks like it could all come back together, but that's Lorena Vivas. Has she had a problem that we haven't seen potentially in this group behind? Because this is not the front group. There's Sarah Roy in front. What a trooper. No arm warmers, no leg warmers. That is,
she's an Aussie, isn't she? That's, you know, that's all you can say about Sarah Roy on a day like this.
I don't know if that makes you harder, does it, being an Aussie? They're normally used to lovely weather.
All our Aussies will be on there now saying, yeah, that does make you an Aussie.
Respect them, that's all I can say. They've just come back, look, you can see. There are a few Canyon SRAM riders here. Now it's not Alice Barnes because you would see her in the British champs stripes, and this group is starting to swell. That's Abby May on the right hand side of your screen for Lotto Soudal, Marty Bastianelli, which we've spoken about before, Ruth Winder, a lot of these key riders here. Majerus still on the front, and you can see now the peloton behind, if that's what you want to call it, is 35 seconds behind this sort of key break that you've got, although it has been attritional. I would say riders going out the back rather than this group forming from an attack off the front.
Yeah, we were picking out the riders that are in this group. So Sarah Roy, Chloe Hosking is just sat on the back of the group here. So good to see the Aussie for Rally getting up there today. So the Rally cycling team. And a few riders as well. They've got to get. There's got to be that point as well where you've got to think, I've got to get rid of my jacket at some point.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to be having that into the finish, especially for the Muur and the Bosberg, the two final climbs of the day. You want to limit your weight, not to be getting too hot. There's Lizzie Banks on the back there. She's got a teammate up the front here for Bigler. A lot of these teams now do have numbers to play with, although I think Abby May might be on her own with the Lotto team. But even, you know, great to be there at this stage for such a young rider. Hannah Barnes has got a teammate who I can't quite make out yet who's riding behind her, and there's a group just coming into the picture here of about 8 or 9 riders who will potentially latch onto this group in front.
Weebus moves up. Major is still on the front. What a job she has done today for Chantal Black. Marta Bastianelli out of the saddle there in the tricolour jersey, the Italian national champion. Aude Bionique right behind her. The Hannah Barnes there moves up. There's Ruth Winder. Floria Mackay, we know, is in this group as well. And Van Dyke. Everyone just looking around here at the moment, just at that group behind, just to see who's coming back up to them.
They all look quite chilled in terms of not being too bothered about this group coming to join them here. I think the group behind will be, you know, riding flat out to try and get to this group to be really in the bike race. You know, as soon as they hit another key part of the race, it's going to split again. So they need to be in this group to be in contention. We've just seen, it looks like the road's going slightly uphill here. Looking at the riders' cadences, and style, you know, out of the saddle. They're taking on food, and these riders behind are desperately trying to latch onto the back before they start going downhill and picking up speed.
Evgenia Bujak in the white jersey here, national champion of Slovenia. See her up there in the group. Banks is having a good day out as well for Bigler. Majorus is still knocking out that tempo on the front. The teammates have got to pay her back with a victory. Today, 46 kilometres to go. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard here on GCN Racing. It's the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, 122.9 kilometres from Ghent to Ninove. Marty, McDonald and Dani Rowe with you today to take you through today's action. And what a day it has been in Nicole Hansen, the first attacker of the day. We have had a breakaway group that's contained the likes of Christina Schweinberger, Femke Marcus, Micah Bogart and Emily Newsom, but it really has been an attritional race, as Dani said, as the group that has now made up that select front group. Annemiek Van Vlueten having a chase back. There was a crash on the corner, and then we went round the corner and we saw Annemiek at the side of the road having to put her chain back on. She had a chase to come back into the group. We'll see if that has affected the legs of Annemiek Van Vlueten at all today. Very, very tough riding conditions for the riders today. The temperature's been dropping as the day's gone on. There are likes of between 10 dropping to 850 to 46 Fahrenheit, 32 kilometers an hour, winds from 37, strong gusts as well. And this select group now, as we head towards the next targets along the route. So we've gone over the Molenberg. Our cobblestone flat sections are behind us. It's the Reckelberg, then the Berendries, and then the Elverenberg, the Vossenhol. The gut feeling attacks. They're just going to try and wear this group down, or do you think it's just going to all go off on the Muur Muur before the Bosberg?
Yeah, my pick would be that this group will stay motivated to stay ahead of any chasing group. You can see that the gap had just gone up slightly to 40 seconds. I think it's in their best interests to stay away now, and I do think it will kick off on the Muur Muur. It's still about 15 kilometres to go from the finish. That's a really good opportunity to be able to go for it, potentially with a solo rider, or if the team have got numbers in that front group, to be able to counter-attack each other and hope that then something sticks. And then it will be either, I guess, a solo finisher or a reduced bunch sprint, which we do usually see in these classic races with such an attritional race with all these different elements to contend with. You can see Lauren Kitchen here for the FDJ team on the front of this group, really trying to keep this group motivated now to get back into contention. You can see the convoy of cars behind. They'll have their directors in their ear, you know, urging them to get back, because like I said, numbers is key in this. So if these riders can have some help at the front, then that's going to be really beneficial. And I think for FDJ, they actually don't have a rider in this front group, so even more for them that they have to just keep going and going.
Off that into that turn, that's a cross section, isn't it? Off the tarmac, right turn onto the cobblestones.
Yeah, it looks slippy as well. So again, you've just got to take your time, especially when you're in a group like this. There's no panic. You should just really stay calm, because chances are, you know, it's just going to be strength now, and I guess positioning into the climbs and cobbles that is going to determine whether you can stay in this group. So you don't want any mishaps from, you know, just taking corners too fast in these conditions.
Ruth Winder, American national champion, and that you can just see the stars poking out from under the gilet. Annemiek Van Vlueten moves through. We're on to the Reckelberg now. 800 metres in length is the Reckelberg, and you can see 9% is the maximum gradient, average gradient of 4%. Just kind of managing this group. I think it's Eleanor Cecchini that's in there that, as well from Canyon SRAM. Here we go. So Chantal Black, the other rider there, Uniken, Van Vlueten, Majoris, Vandenbos, Sarah Roy is in there, Bastianelli, Barnes, Korovar, Bujak, Cecchini, Bionique is also in there. 21 riders, we're being told. Koch is in there as well. Mackay, Van Dijk, Winder, Parkinson and Banks. So Abby May, Parkinson, Lotte Sudal. And then you have Rusa, Hosking and Wiebes.
This is a really nice group size, 21. You know, no one can really hide. You can really try and suss out who the leaders are in the groups, and really try and, you know, chat to each other now and come up with some sort of plan for the finish. And you really have to have A, B, C, you know, scenarios. You know, with these classics races, it's all very well and good saying we're riding for, you know, one rider at the beginning of the race, but you can just see there's so much that can happen, and you don't really know where people's forms are. So it will be a case of real communication. Communication is key at this stage of the race, with only 44 kilometres to go now, only just over an hour of racing. It's clear to see that Marjorie is working for Chantal Black, her teammate. They have got numbers in this group here. Jana Korova looks like she's on her own, unfortunately for CCC Liv, so she's going to have to just play it safe and follow, because she doesn't have those cards to play.
No, what a ride today. You've got to say, that rider on the front, she is the teammate extraordinaire. It's Christine Meyer-Jarus from Boels-Dolmans. What a job that she does in these races for her teammates when she's given the opportunity, that she takes them. Boels-Dolmans have also got Lonneke Uniken, the rider here that is also up there to be able to do this job for Chantal Black. Grace Brown, you can see third in line, 21 riders, so we're getting here. So Chantal Black, Uniken, Van Vleuten, Majorus, Van den Bos, Sarah Roy is also in there. So Bastianelli, Barnes, Korova, Bujak, Cicchini, Bionique. So just see if they've changed any riders. So Koch, Mackay, Van Dijk, Winder, Parkinson and Banks are in there. So 21 riders, Rusa, Hosking and Wiebes. What a group here. No Lucinda Brand, so Chloe Hosking's going to bring it home for me today.
Yeah, and I've still got my pick in there, Bastianelli, and my outsider, Lorena Vives, so I've got more chance than you, unfortunately.
You have. I was crushed when you said Bastianelli, because that was the name. It was just going through my mind when just as you said it.
Well, we can share it if she wins, I guess. And there's Abby May just on the back of this group, and I think if I was in her ear now, I'd just be telling her to move up slightly if she can, because any sort of change in wind direction, or, you know, if you're really suffering on a climb, is where you can lose connection and then you're really on your own. As opposed to having sliding room, which is what I always try to do, which is where you basically position yourself right at the front, at the bottom of the climb, and hope that come the top you're still in contention with that group, and you're just sort of sliding back through the group. If you're not maybe feeling it, or not, you know, a pure climber, then you're giving yourself the best chance to stay in whatever group that you might be in.
Sarah Roy, as we said, she gets the Aussie award of the day with no arm warmers. Sarah Roy. Respect to Sarah Roy. And thanks all of you for getting on board. Thanks for saying hi. Sonia Harper, Abby May Parkinson for the win. There she is from Lotte Sudal.
Top coach, eh?
There you go. I think Dani will hit the ceiling if Abby May won today. Abby May's coach alongside me. She's in this group. And Lizzie Banks there. There's Marion Rusa, the Swiss champion. There's Annemiek Van Vlueten with right behind her teammates, targeting the classics. We had that interview with her a little bit earlier on. It was great to just get a bit of insight into what Annemiek is thinking going into this season, and particularly going into the classics. Marta Bastianelli's doing a classic Bastianelli here, though, isn't she? She just sat back there, just kind of chilling on the back of the group.
She is. But fair play to her, I think. You know, it's all about being smart as well as, you know, having the strength. And I think if that's your best card to play, then do it. You know, why not? I remember actually when I was riding with Kirsten Wild, and I said after a race, God, I averaged such high watts in that race. And she had actually won the race, and she'd averaged less than me. And no one knows, no one cares what sort of powers you were doing. They only care about the result. So that just shows that it's all about being smart, knowing when to use your power, sitting back, you know, using the advantage of being on a wheel in front, so that you can use your power come the finish. I
But
obviously didn't know how to use mine.
Isn't that the lesson when you go from being an amateur rider or you switch into top level road cycling? I always remember Stephen Roach saying in terms of that's one lesson you need to learn when you turn pro, is how to use as little amount of energy as possible throughout the race.
Yeah, totally, and I think that's why the Dutch are so good, because they've been exposed to so much racing from such a young age. So they've just got that experience, and they've been brought up riding bikes, not just in racing, but whether it be to school. It's just the infrastructure of the roads in the Netherlands, it just lends itself to being on a bike. And this is a really tough climb now that the riders are coming towards almost a kilometre in length, but with a real steep severity to this climb. You're seeing riders out of the saddle, which usually does show that the climb is steep.
Hannah Barnes out the saddle and through the centre still seems Sunweb setting the pace here. Ruth Winder just sat behind Annemiek Van Vleuten. She's decided that's the wheel that she wants today. Van Vleuten is keeping herself out of trouble up towards the front. And for someone like a young rider, when you look around this group and you look at the young riders like Abby May and we saw Lorena Wiebes last year, and what a phenomenal season that she had. And it's Abby May's ride last year in the women's tour in Britain. She got caught just before the finish. But looking now, you said she's so happy within that Lotto Soudal team and within that system, and that now it's just getting over that line, isn't it? That first pro win.
Yeah, it just makes such a difference when you're content in a team. I think it takes so much stress away, where you can just focus so much on your performance. If you feel secure in a team, you can confidently ride for others in specific races and know that you will get that back. One day you can learn from different teammates. I think it is a step up going to Lotto Soudal, just in terms of the racing opportunities as well. Unfortunately, last year with Jock, she didn't have a huge amount of races on the calendar, and again, not necessarily for results, but just for race days and experience, and like we were saying, knowing how to race and how to use your power, it's absolutely crucial. So yeah, I think she's going to have a great year.
There's you can't compare really, can you, when you get into like the World Tour teams and you're riding race after race after race, week in, week out against the best in the world, year after year, and you watch the way those young riders come through, and then all of a sudden it just clicks. And it'll be good to see how she does this year. There's Sarah Roy in the Century Pictures, as we said, the teammate of Annemiek Van Vleuten. Just ready for battle here. No arm warmers, no leg warmers today, and that's quite an art as well, isn't it, as a rider, to reach through to your swanny to grab your bottle.
Yeah, and that again comes with experience, and especially again for riders on new teams, knowing your swannies, knowing where and how they like to give you your bottles on the side of the road, and it's it's so important, because it's your fuel at the end of the day. I've been in races before where you've almost been dying for a drink, and if you miss it, that can have probably more mental challenges than actual physical. When you get that bottle, it's just it's quite a sigh of relief, and you can see the pace kind of coming up here. You've got Soraya Paladin now on the front for CCC Live, and I guess they will be motivated to try and get back, because Jana is on her own, and I wouldn't say she's a real favourite to win, and if this front group came into a bunch sprint. So they're desperately trying to get back into this race, so they've got numbers. At 32 seconds now, it's kind of steady around the 30 to 40 second sort of gap. So still could get back. I don't think it will, but we're not sort of at that over a minute mark. I think if they were to work together behind, they could catch. But again, most teams are represented in this front group, so it's almost a case of letting them do their thing now, and hoping that when you cross the line coming from the groups behind, that you can get good news that your team's won.
21 riders making up the front group. So they just head in towards the next climb. 32 seconds is the gap. So Koch, Mackay, Van Dijk, Winder is the makeup of this group. May Parkinson and Lizzie Banks, Roofser, Swiss champion, Chloe Hosking and Lorena Wiebes. That is the makeup of this. We're heading towards the next objective, which will be the Elverenberg, the Vossenhol, 36.5 kilometers to go, the summit of that one, then on to the Ten Bos, which is 900 meters, then on to the Eikenmolen, then we will get into that run-in towards the Muur, Kapelmuur, into Geraardsbergen, and then we will hit the Bosberg. Last year's winner, Chantal Black, is in this group. She came in alone, 1 minute and 9 last year, solo victory in that Dutch national champions jersey. Marta Bastianelli leading the group sprint in behind, ahead of Jip van den Bos, with Annemiek Van Vlueten coming in fourth. Everyone just grabbing a gel, grabbing some food in this group. Rusa, you can see, just biting the top off the energy gel there. Marta Bastianelli just starting to move up towards the front. Trek Segafredo represented in this group. Ellen van Dijk and Ruth Winder both in there. 42 seconds, so the gap is holding over that chasing group behind. So these climbs are going to come thick and fast now. Here we go, straight into the Elverenberg, onto the Vossenhol, 1400 meters, 3.7% average, maximum gradient of 8.6%. There's a nice little graphic there that shows you how the gradient goes as the climb goes on. Van den Bos towards the front here. So what a day, what a ride again from the rider here with the orange short-sleeved rain jacket on. This is your chasing group. You can just see Alice Barnes in there, the British champion from Canyon SRAM. Her older sister Hannah is the rider in that leading group. We have been line to line here on GCN Racing for Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Thanks for bearing with us as well, the issues that the host broadcaster was having throughout. So thank you for all of you. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for sticking with us. And thanks for all your chat. Thanks for all your comments. If you want to make your predictions, you can make them. There's the head of the race. So Alice Barnes is chasing on the front of that group behind, or at least riding tempo on the front. Be happy with the makeup of that front group. I would say the teams that are represented in there for the Canyon SRAM team. 37k to go. Still Majerus knocking out that tempo on the front. The Boels-Dolmans team were really well represented at the front. Go ahead, and you can just see the way that climb just drops down, kicks back up the summit with 36.5k to go. Van Vleuten just poised and ready, you would almost say. The Trek Segafredo Soigneur. Along the side there's Ellen van Dijk. You see this helmet just a little bit skew-whiff to one side. Banks just got that energy gel in her mouth, waiting to the opportunity to try and get a feed here. That gap though, 46 seconds. It was Alice Barnes on the front. We just said, so riding tempo, you would say, on that group behind. Majerus still keeping the pressure on. Christine, we saw her out again riding cyclocross all winter. Abby May was racing, as you said, racing cyclocross all winter. Do you think now this is becoming and will become so much more important for classics riders? We've seen multidisciplinary riders throughout, the last, where women's cycling with Mariana and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and everyone just jumping in and out from road to track to mountain bike to cyclocross. But do you think cross now is going to be the thing that riders really need to target in the winter? Yeah,
I think cross is for sure, especially going into the classics. If you want to do well in the classics, then I think it's being proven that so many riders are taking advantage of that high intensity, the short efforts that you need to be a good classics rider. Essentially, I don't think you can do it all. I don't think you can be, an outstanding world-class track rider and be really, really good on the road. There's only a certain number of riders that can do that. Kirsten Wild, for example, but again, with Kirsten, she's only just, really, really doing well on the track now. that she really seems to be focusing on it, especially coming into Olympic year. But yeah, like we said with cyclocross, I think it's just, apparent here again with Abby May, riders like Marianne Vos, who does cyclocross in the winter, Lucinda Brand, and again on the men's side as well, you're seeing a lot of classics riders, Van der Poel, who have this incredible cyclocross season and then come into the road and all guns blazing, having done that real top end work and these short sharp efforts that are essentially what you need for the classics. I know that's what we've been working on with Abby May Parkinson, these 30-second 1, 2, 3 minute efforts that you need to be able to stay in the groups at the front.
Emilia Farlin, you saw there, the former Swedish champion from FDJ in that group behind. You can see Lorena Wiebes, if you're asking where the Dutch national champion is, and very quiet in this group as well is Lorena Wiebes. There's Hannah Barnes, who's riding up towards the front. Good to see Hannah up here in this group. She almost seemed the last couple of seasons to settle back into a bit of a worker bee role.
Yeah, and I hope she does get the opportunity because she really is such a talented rider, and again she knows how to position herself. She's been in this peloton for years now. She actually started sort of in the road scene straight away. She dabbled in a little bit of track but didn't kind of really go there when we were all riding the track in sort of the end of 2010. She started with us but soon found that road was sort of her thing. So she's been really in this peloton for 6, 7, 8 years now, so she's ridden this race numerous of times. It's obvious that she loves being part of the Canyon SRAM team that she's been in for years, but like you said, she did seem to sort of slot into that domestique role, and also on the British team as well, especially with the likes of Lizzie Dignam being in that team. You're automatically placed into having to work for someone else. So I do hope that she gets that opportunity potentially today. I think it's a tough one being out there with Elena Cecchini. They can both sprint, so I think they're both just going to have to be open and honest in terms of how their legs are feeling and who is going to go for it today, because there really can only be one.
Bit of a shout out to Peter in Bern, just giving me a heads up, which is good. Thank you. You know me, I'll always take a correction. Our Swiss champion, Marlene. It's the EU is like an oi, so it's Reusser. Thank you. That's much appreciated. There's your group: Black, Uniken van Vleuten, Majorus, Van den Bos, the Bastianelli Bujak, Barnes, Cecchini, Korovar, Bionic, Bujak here on the front.
She's a super strong rider. She's won in Plouay before, and these sort of classic conditions really suit her. Super strong. She's also ridden on the track before, so she would have probably done a lot of gym work in her programme, and I think that's what a lot of these riders will be doing now, and it's interesting to see the real change in sort of training techniques, especially when it comes to gym, because it's in a lot more of these riders' programmes now, especially in the winter, to try and build that real pure strength that you need to produce these high powers for short periods of time.
Here's your chasing group, and it's FDJ.
They're probably the biggest losers of the day, I would say, unfortunately for them, with no one in that chase group. They're obviously here, and this is what they have to do, and these other riders can sit back and say, well, sorry, I've got Ryder up the front, so we're not going to help. But unfortunately, yeah, it's a real tough situation to be in when no one's in the front group and you're having to do all the work for potentially no reward if they don't get back to the front group before the finish.
Don't forget, give us a thumbs up on our live broadcast if you're enjoying our line-to-line coverage of Omloop Het Nieuwsblad today. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. You can set your reminders and you know that when we are going live, we will have more live elite professional women's racing this season. If you were with us last year, remember Dani and I were here for Giro Rosa, Tour of Norway. We did Colorado Classic amongst others as well. This group, again, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern here. We're going on to the 10 Boss, which will be next. That is the next climb along the route. The summit of that is 31.9 to go. It's 900 meters in length. Then we go on to the Eikemolen, and then the last two climbs are cobblestones, two of the most iconic climbs in cycling. If you want somewhere to go and ride your bike that's a bit different, come to Belgium. I love Belgium. I love riding my bike.
Maybe in the summer though, not now in the winter. But yeah, there's such iconic, prestigious climbs, aren't they? It's such a history of in the sport of these climbs, so it is definitely good to experience it. I know Flanders have a sportief, so it's always good to try, and it also, I think, really brings it home in terms of how hard they are. You watch it on telly, these cobbles, and you think, I could ride that easily, and then you try and ride them yourself, and you get thrown around so much more than what it looks like on TV. I know some riders, especially on the men's side, in races like Paris-Roubaix, will strap their hands up for the cobbles. But yeah, not today, with only a couple of sections being cobbles. But yeah, I would definitely encourage people to get out to Belgium to ride these iconic climbs.
So your leading group on the left and your chasing group on the right, led by the team FDJ, Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope. 48 seconds is the gap between the two groups. They're the team that really have lost out in this one today. Bujak back through to the front. Winder now moves through. We are climbing again. Bastianelli on the back. This is the 10 boss. So average gradient of 6.9%, maximums of 8.7. And now the team of Marta Bastianelli starting to get into the mix here, starting to work for the Italian champion, who you can see just towards the back of the group. Annemiek is looking great for Movistar as well on the back, just smoothly pedaling away on the back. She's such a dark horse in this one. We see her working for everybody else. She had that solo attack in the Giro Rosa last year, where she got away. She's been national champion of France. There's so many people I'm sure would love to see just get that big classic win as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was on a team with Audrey Cordon-Rego, and she's a huge fan of Annemiek. She has been national champion before, but again hasn't really had that opportunity, in these big races. But a super, super strong rider, and she did look really composed there, not rocking and rolling all over the bike, really chilled. And you can just see the slight gaps now in this front group where it looks like Bujak is really trying to test the legs of these other riders. Chloe Hoskins still in there, then a few riders just trying to hang on the back here, and the 10 boss is quite as short. And Ruth Winder
goes
first attack from this group.
So now we go. Ruth Winder out of the saddle, the American national champion, now goes on the attack. We've been waiting for this move to go. It's answered straight away.
Sunweb straight on it. Hannah Barnes from Canyon SRAM, Lizzie Banks from Bigler straight on it as they now start the descent off the Tame Boss.
That was the first little test. Who's going to be the next rider to go? We're all looking around at each other now. 45 seconds is the gap between this front group and that chasing group behind. They've got to be careful that they don't take the wind out the sails completely here and let that group come back, because that again would change the dynamic considerably, letting the likes of FDJ back in there. Someone's got to take control here.
Yeah, they haven't. That's the only problem when attacks and counter attacks start. You do find that you get real lulls in between, and that's where it does get dangerous for a group potentially to be able to come back. But Marjorie's is straight on there. She's almost trying to neutralize this front group to ride at this sort of steady state that she's riding at now. She's obviously had orders from Chantal, who knows exactly how she wants to try and win this race, and it's obviously not trying to follow counter-attacks and them attacking themselves.
Sarah Roy up there, second wheel. That was just a little bit of a test, I think, from Ruth Winder. Not the full-out attack, just wanted to maybe wait the legs up, see how the group are reacting. Little shout-out to Charity Girano watching in the Philippines. I think Annemiek was saying that she headed out to the Philippines for a bit of training. I think you've got the Tour of Philippines coming up there very soon. Back to our chasing group. CCC Liv and FDJ Aquitaine are the teams that are on the front here. 31 kilometers to go, and the next objective along the route, the Eikemolen, is the next climb. Can this group drag themselves back into contention here in the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. We're heading into down towards the finish today in Ninove. Can this group come into the finish with a group? Will it be a solo winner like we had last year? Chantal Black was the winner last year. Lonneke Uneken is now back through to the front here for Boels-Dolmans.
We're in this fast section now between the Team Boss and the Eikenmolen, and this is pretty steep climb. It averages at 5.4%, but there are steeper sections in that 700 meters, and then we come into the Muur. So these riders are really going to want to try and, you know, keep this group ahead of the race. You know, really keep one of their riders from each team near the front to make sure that they can answer to any attacks. We just saw Ruth Winder there, the first attack of the day, and now we have another move here from this Boels rider. I can't quite make out who.
I think it's Unica Lonneken.
Okay, and Hannah Barnes hotly on her heels. So I just said Marjorie was potentially trying to neutralise this group. Well, I was obviously wrong, because they are now trying to attack to get someone up the road and split this group up. It's obviously too big. They're not happy with this composition of riders. Potentially Chloe Hoskin. Everyone knows how good she can sprint. So are they trying to get rid of her and make it harder so that she's not there come the finish line?
19 years old is Lonneke Uneken, was bronze medalist in the under-23 European Championships last year. So class rider, good sprinter is Uneken. So doing a good job here to get into this select leading group. 21 riders making up this front group. You would say that the winner is going to come from this group, unless FDJ and CCC Liv can drag this group back into contention. Soraya Paladin of the CCC Liv team, new signing for CCC Liv this year, going across from Alei Cipollini last year, is the rider really that has missed out today. We had her up there as one of our pre-race favourites, and Amelia Farlene doing a big job on the front here, the former Swedish champion. Great to see Amelia back in and racing. She had an absolutely exceptional 2018. She was so consistent. She had 5 victories and 10 podiums. Then she crashed last year. She had that head injury that took her most of the season to come back from.
Yeah, and it's a real sort of talking point at the moment, concussion in sport, and really how serious it is. Sabrina Stutens from CCC Liv is still trying to get back from a terrible concussion that she suffered a couple of years ago, and it is really such a serious injury, and something that you really have to think about your long-term health, essentially, to not try and get back too early and take it really seriously. Unfortunately, because you can't see it as you could, a broken leg, it's really hard for these riders to, I guess, come to terms with that they can't race from a head injury. But yeah, super important to take it slow, but great to see Amelia Farlin back where she belongs. Unfortunately for FDJ, they haven't made this front group, and they are trying to do all the work and having to do most of the work. They've got CCC helping with only one rider in this front group of 21, with Jana Korova. They're obviously not super confident that that is the best scenario for them, so they're helping FDJ with this fight to get to the front. But unfortunately, I think it's over, especially now we're coming into the last major 3 climbs. Eikenmolen coming up now, 610 meters, not a huge average gradient, but a max of 12, and that's where riders can really use attacking to their advantage and trying to get the gaps on these steeper sections. Someone like Van Vleuten would love, relish the thought of anything over 10%.
1 minute now, the gap. So this gap now going out over that chasing group. So riders just getting rid of those jackets. So as we get in towards the final stages of the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, when will the big race-winning attacks come? Marta Bastianelli, you can see the Italian champion. She's got Lorena Wiebes locked right on her. Marlena Reusser here from Bigla Katusha in the black jacket just moves up. Boels-Dolmans, though, real strength in numbers here. Team Sunweb with Franziska Koch and Floortje Mackay, with the teammates of Annemiek Van Vlueten. She's got some teammates in there. Lizzie Banks was looking for A little bit of feeding there, a bit of a bottle. Lizzie Banks still got the jacket on, still got the leg warmers on. She's British. She should be like Sarah Rowe.
She should be used to this, shouldn't she?
It's like summer.
I know. I bet she's cooking under all of that. Leg warmers, overshoes. But again, you can't knock her. She's having a fantastic day out there today, so it's obviously working for her.
She's another one of, I think she's a former medical student as well, Lizzie Banks. I think she took a break from that to pursue a career as a pro bike rider. Good to see. We've got many doctors in the women's peloton. And back to our chasers. CCC Live, just one rider here. You can see, I think that's Suzanne Anderson from somewhere, but it's just trying to maybe run a little bit of interference now on the back of this, the back of the two riders working on the front here.
Yeah, and that's what you could get as well. I guess if the riders up ahead have got numbers, they don't want this group to come back, and it is slowly coming back now at 50 seconds. So these riders now, they're collaborating with this chase. There is a potential little lull in this front group, although Bianic is still, Bujak on the front here with Lizzie Banks on her wheel. A couple of little gaps after this little rise that they've just been over as they approach the next Eikenmolen climb of the course, coming into the last 25 kilometres of this bike race.
For the ride, the coach in you, Dani, you got your rider in there, Abby Parkinson, on the back of it, Abby May. What would you be saying for her right now if you were telling her what to do?
Well, she's on her own out there for Lotto, so for sure to follow. But to me, she seems to be on the back a little bit too much on the back, literally the last rider. And I think playing to her strengths, she should be a little bit closer to the front to make sure she's just, it's windy out there, a little bit more protected, a little bit more sliding room. She's a young rider, rather than sitting literally right at the back. But again, just trying to motivate because she's having a fantastic ride. So, just trying to pick it off one at a time. Again, not looking too far ahead to the finish. The Eikenmolen coming up, getting over that in the best shape possible, and then the Muur, and then the Bosberg, and then obviously thinking about the finish.
Christine Majerus is up the tempo on the front. Grace Brown right behind her. So Boels-Dolmans and Mitchelton-Scott, Chantal Black and Annemiek Van Vlueten, big favourites going into today's race. Now we start the run towards Geraardsbergen and into the Muur, Kapel Muur, that iconic climb that we have. We're expecting the big attacks to come on that as Christine Majerus there just corrects herself going into that corner. Don't forget, give us a big thumbs up on our broadcast today. It all helps, as I always say, with the Tinterweb jiggery pokery. And if you're interested, there's a poll going over onto the GCN Racing on Facebook as if the race will break up on the Muur. But don't forget, give us that subscribe and give us a thumbs up as well. We're going to start to see some attacks from riders as Roycer goes here for the Biglet Katusha team.
This looks like a good move here, actually. Riders behind, although Majerus looks like to be riding at a steady state, it doesn't look like there's a full-on sort of counter attack to try and get on her wheel.
Majerus just controlling the front of the group. This could be the good long range. This is the long range attack that we need from someone out of this group. The running toward when you've been in this position when you're trying to lead a rider into the bottom of the Muur. It's a real technical run-in, isn't it? Doing that job that Christine's doing on the front here.
Yeah, it is, and it's also about having confidence in each other to, that they're going to get you in the right place at the right time, and that, they might be waiting at the back and, really biding their time, and, almost sprinting to the front right at the last minute rather than wasting all that energy at the front, with kilometres and kilometres to go still to the bottom. Because so much can change in the lead into the last, couple of 100 metres before these turns into the bottom of these prestigious climbs or cobbled sections. And I'd be interested to see if Lizzie Banks attacks here. You saw them go in 1-2 in the Giro, and that worked really well, and Lizzie Banks had her first ever pro win. So now I'd be interested to see. You can see her just come into the middle of your screens now, and whether that is now a sort of real key race move now for the Bigler team.
Back to our chasers. This is the chasing group. So Dani Brown just on the back here for Lotto Soudal. still they've really thinned this group out, haven't they?
They have. It was actually a real significant group before, and now it only looks like about 15 riders. So they're obviously riding hard at the front, especially with the CCC Live girls. And actually, the FDJ don't seem to be working with them. There's only one rider left now in this group. So something must have happened, whether an attack's happened, that's really whittled this chase group down.
Or indeed, Lotte Sidal coming in to today's race with a good team, the Lotte Sidal team. So they had Elena Kastrik going back to the front. Majerus in the pressure on, looking for some help here from Bujak just to keep the pressure high. They had Dani Christmas in there as well, Ariana Fidanza and Julie van der Velde are also in that group. 21 riders if you're just jumping into our coverage here with 24 kilometers to go. Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, it really has been a race of attrition, tough conditions for the riders today. Last year's winner, Chantal Black, is in there. Jip van den Bos, Van Vleuten, Winder, Majerus, Wiebes, Korova, Hosking, Bienik, Royce, Mackay, Suk, Bags, Bujak, Parkinson, Koch, Uniken, Van Dijk, Roy, Bujak and Cecchini. Here's the makeup, and they just put the graphic up just as I've reeled them all up.
But there, we are going to see fireworks. This group is just too big to take to the finish line now. You know, there's too many riders from, you know, the same team in the groups, and I think we're just going to see attack after attack once we get to these last couple of climbs and key parts of the course coming into the finish line.
Floortje Mackay gets an energy gel from the teammate Francisca Koch. I'm impressed by Lonica Uniken, the young rider here, just 19 as well, the rider in here for Boels-Dolmans.
Yeah, that was really, really impressive. But again, to be on a team like Boels-Dolmans, then, you know, they're really learning off the best. They've been such an established team for so many years. They know, again, how to work as a team to get the best out of each and every rider.
And good to see as well, there was announced recently, and I can't remember the new sponsor off the top of my head, but Boels-Dolmans have got a new sponsor, which is very, very good news.
Yeah, really good, and I love to hear, you know, that sort of news as well. You know, like Drops, you know, they were really struggling for a key sponsor, and to be able to carry on, you know, in this World Tour, Peloton, be at the best races, it is just great for the sport.
23 kilometers go, live coverage line to line here of the Elite Women's Omloop Het Nieuwsblad today. Dani Rowe is alongside me, rider who has ridden this race multiple occasions. And Annemiek Van Vlueten, just Chloe Hosking just moving up on the outside here now for Chloe Hosking, looking for the soigneur, grabs the bottle, and you can see the soigneurs at this stage of the race as well. They've got the energy gel just kind of stuck into the top of the bottle, the way to get double feed up to your riders. You'll see that a lot. They just tuck the gel into the top of the bottle. I'm impressed with Chloe Hosking today.
Yeah, I am as well. It'll be really interesting to see how she goes over the Eikenwallen, the Muur and the Bosberg, and if she is still there, then maybe we should have got her in as one of our favourites, because she's definitely the best sprinter in this group.
Cassina, Cromwell, Bertazzola, Yonomine, Paladin, Kitchen, a part of our chasing group. Anderson, Van Gogh, Christmas, Jackson, Bram, Poitevin, I hope I am saying that right, is our Canadian rider. 12 riders in this chasing group, and for our fans around the world, our Japanese fans, Eri Yonomine, good to see her getting in there. Another British rider, Dani Christmas, is in this group as well, so good seeing them up there. And Poitevin from Canada.
Yeah, it's great. I'm actually really impressed with the British riders. You know, we've got Hannah Barnes in this front group, Abby May Parkinson, Dani Christmas in the chase group, Lizzie Banks in the front group as well. So yeah, no, they're having a really, really great day.
We are headed, still 40 seconds is your time gap as we head towards the penultimate climb of the day, the iconic Muur, Kapel Muur. The summit comes with 16.7 to go, and it comes in. Just explain. You've been in there and raced. I've ridden up here, but it's totally different ball game racing in it, because you come in and you've got that first kick up, haven't you, and then into the square before you start that sort of iconic bit round the top.
Yeah, so it comes in off a really main road. It's super, super fast. You go over a bridge and turn left into the town, and it already starts climbing there, and then it goes on to sort of a pave. You turn left, round the corner, and then that's where it gets super narrow, proper cobbles, really, really steep, sort of a round, a left-hand bend, swoops up around the church. And then the problem is then if you find yourself in a big group or, you know, with a lot of riders around you, it's a really technical, fast, steep descent then. And with the Bosberg only 4 kilometres away from the bottom of the Muur, the top of the Muur, you know, there's really not much time to then close gaps or recover before you hit that, and then it's just a really fast run in to the finish. So that is a real sort of key part to this bike race, which we are going to see very shortly.
And is it the best place to almost attack on that sort of the tarmac after you come out of the square and you kick left before you go and swing right up round towards the church? Where's the best place to make you move on the climb?
I'd say almost as you turn round onto the to the right, onto the real steep part of the climb. That's where the cobbles really get thick, rather than the sort of pave smooth cobbles that you get when you enter the town. And that's when you can really commit, knowing that you've probably only got a minute to really power round up and around the church and get a gap. And you just can't look back. It's all about commitment. If that is where you want to try and go, to either split the group up or try and get away solo before you hit the Bosberg, then you've got to just go for it and not look back.
No. Everything you got. 35 seconds, 20 kilometres to go. This leading group being driven by Boels-Dolmans, Christine Majerus, with Lonneke Uneken, who's been swapping in and out with Christine Majerus, Sarah Rowe, and is the rider with Grace Brown that have been doing the work here for Annemiek Van Vlueten for Mitchelton-Scott. Ruth Winder on the left of your picture there, the US national champion, tried that little testing attack, so show that she's on some good form. Ellen Van Dijk just on the right of your picture there. Uneken comes back through in the orange for Boels-Dolmans. The 2 riders in here for Team Sunweb from Francesca Koch and Floortje Mackay. So can Floortje, Floortje, when is a rider that in terms of what she's won in her career, she's still only 24. I remember meeting Floortje years ago in the Tour of Qatar, but she's still only 24. She's won Gent-Wevelgem in her career. She's won things like the Omloop van Wessel, but last year second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège for Floortje. So she, again, she's a really, really solid classics rider.
She is, and I think she's really trying to establish herself as a specific, you know, really trying to find the best in terms of where she fits in. And this is the bridge that I was talking about, the real fast running. They'll go over the bridge, they'll turn left onto the course. You can see Floortje there, who we were just talking about, really in the best place possible. I'd say, you know, you don't want to be right at the back here. You need to be in the top 5 or 6 riders. You know, if people have mechanicals, getting onto the cobbles, they're in the wrong gear. You do not want to get caught behind. Chloe Hoskin always in the right position. Sarah Rowe, you know, she's really protecting Van Vleuten now, who is on her wheel as we come into this town, and they are about to hit this famous Muur climb.
Chantal Black, last year's winner, up towards the front of this one, and Barnes just getting squeezed back just a touch. Ruth Winder is there. Now Sarah Rowe comes through to try and line this one up. For Annemiek Van Vleuten, we are waiting for the big attack. Will it come from Van Vleuten? Will it come from Chantal Black? Ruth Winder, stage winner and GC in the Tour Down Under this year for Trek Segafredo. She has started the year on great form, and we are on the Muur, Capel Muur now.
This is where we get onto the real cobbles of the climb. They turn left, they'll swoop round to the right, and that's when the road narrows. They're going through this circus, and this is all about position here, and it is Van Vleuten on the front. She is going for it now. She is going to give it her all from bottom to top.
So you can see Annemiek Van Vleuten on the front. This is the climb, 19.8% maximum gradient where it kicks up round the top, but it looked like Van den Bos that was straight on her. Floortje Mackay is there. Lizzie Banks having a phenomenal day out is the Katusha Bigler rider. Van Vleuten just grinding out the tempo on the front. Bastianelli right on the wheel of Chantal Black in the orange. She's got the hands on the tops. Bastianelli just started to make a move. This is your chasing group. 30 seconds down, but they're now hitting the big one, the Muur van Geraardsbergen. So we'd have a look at this group. Van Vleuten pressing on here, starting to just thin out this group. The world champion keeping the tempo high. Bastianelli is right there as Chantal Black, third in line. Floortje Mackay having a great day here from Team Sunweb. Latched herself right onto the wheel of Van Vleuten as Ellen van Dijk takes to the pavement on the other side of the road.
It's an interesting line there from Ellen van Dijk as they come round onto the steepest section of this climb. They're going to come round, they're going to have the church in sight as they crest round to the left hand side of this climb now, and Van Vleuten has really gone from the very bottom because she knows that riders will not be able to hang on for that long.
She can hold that sustained tempo. Lizzie Banks there's Bastianelli as Van Dijk just moves up, and the chasing group, Chloe Hosking. Some of the chasers looks like just starting to come back onto the back of the group. Korovar is there. Bujak is there as we go up into this iconic section. Van Vleuten just little by little now opening the gap up over Floortje Mackay. These are the sort of sustained efforts that the world champion can do. You can see the difference almost, Dani, between the tempo and the gear that Van Vleuten is riding and Floortje Mackay here is just clinging on to the advantage, to hold that advantage of Annemiek Van Vleuten on this climb.
Quick look back there by Van Vleuten as she comes into the final few hundred metres of this climb. She's going to have the church in sight in a minute. She can see that Floortje is really hot on her tails, and there's riders strung out all over the road, but these two riders have got quite a significant gap here. She's got to keep going all the way, power to weight. She's such a slight rider, but she's got that power, and she's showing that. Ellen van Dijk is still battling on. Marta Bastianelli is there. Lizzie Banks is still there. This group very much still in contact with Van Vleuten here, who's probably got about 10 seconds on this remainder of the 21 that was away at the start.
You'll see there's Ruth Winder now, the shot here of Van Vleuten. Look at the gap now of the world champion. She would have just shifted through those gears as it just started to level out. Now we go up through the iconic shot here, up towards the church at the top. Floortje Mackay, where is she? There she is, the Team Sunweb rider, keeping that tempo high. Here's Ellen van Dijk. Bastianelli and Banks are right behind, and Chantal Black, last year's winner. This is a solid chasing group, but it just how much of an advantage has Annemiek Van Vleuten got over the top of this climb? Van Vleuten, though, alone, we've seen her from this sort of gap just ride off and ride away.
That was so impressive, and you could see she just didn't give up all the way over the top. Now you can see this is a super steep technical descent. She's going to try and get down safely, and it'll be really interesting to see if she just tries to go solo all the way. I think she will. I think the group behind with Chantal Black will close into Floortje Mackay, and they will have to work together to try and get back to Van Vleuten. But we saw at the World Championships just how strong Van Vleuten is on her own, so I wouldn't put it past her to go all the way to the finish now.
Floortje Mackay might get some company quite soon. There's Chantal Black on the back of the group. There's Genya Bujak and Ruth Winder with Chloe Hosking, your next riders on the road. Then Korovar and Rowe. This is the shot here on the descent on the wet, slick cobblestones. Ellen van Dijk, another rider coming back from injury in her first race, isn't she?
Yeah, she had a really nasty crash. I think it was in Bowls Tour at the end of the season last year. Really, really nasty. I think collarbone. And a few other injuries that left her in hospital for a little bit of time. So it's really good to see her back already, you know, in the real forefront of this race. One of the, well, the first classic of the season.
Annemiek Van Vleuten, 66 road wins as a pro last year. World champion, Strade Bianchi, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. National champion, 2 stages and the general classification in the Giro Rosa, and that was last year alone. Who will ever forget that win in the World Championship race? I think we were all stunned when we watched her ride off at the beginning of that one. It was that attack on the climb, and you just looked at it and thought, no, seriously? She
100
can't,
kilometres
can she?
to go. There's no way, you know. You had a group behind with, you know, Anna van der Breggen, Lizzie Dijkenen, and, you know, all these top super strong riders, and for her to keep them at bay was so impressive, and that's why I think potentially she could do it again today. And I'll be eating my words because I said I didn't think she would win today. So that is super, super impressive. But you can see these riders are already working so strongly together. almost in echelon formation. They're rolling through like chain gang, as opposed to the team time trial format where one rider might do 10 to 20 seconds on the front. They're just rolling through to try and keep this momentum, to try and catch Annemiek Van Vleuten, who has 15 seconds over that Muur.
When I spoke to her the other day, you could tell the fire that she's got for these classics, that she wants such a run at this classics season, and no better way than to get it going with this one.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said before, she's never podiumed in this race before, so what motivation, to be doing well in these new races, and not just pigeonhole herself into these sort of Giro Rosa long climbed rider. She really can do it all, and she's proven that today.
Cheers, there's the shot, the world champion. Look at the mud on the dirt on the helmet and the glasses of Annemiek Van Vleuten. She's been pushing it in the winter. She's been training so hard coming into this season. Olympic year, and it's when you think back now, we're back into an Olympic year. That crash that Annemiek had in Rio, I mean, it was a horror crash, wasn't it? But 4 years on, and the rider that she's kind of reinvented herself into it's just been phenomenal, just watching the sort of metamorphosis of Van Vleuten.
Yeah, totally. And I think she had such a good chance in Rio as well, and she's almost come back so much stronger. She's reevaluated what she's going to do. She's almost said in that interview that she had almost a year-on-year plan. It's not just a case of getting to the next season and thinking, right, what now? She's worked with coaches to increase her distance, the speed she's riding with, looking at ways to really push herself. Is it altitude? Is it training with the guys? And it's obviously really paying off. She dedicates her whole life to cycling, and it's also really impressive that she's come back at the beginning of the season after becoming world champion, which would have a lot more time restraints on you, sponsor obligations, and then to still be able to perform is super impressive. And I think she's going to end up going all the way, having a fantastic season and being, probably the out-and-out favourite for the Olympics, looking at how she's riding now.
You can see Bujak just getting on here, grinding out her way. Evgenia Bujak back into this group. There's a little close-up shot there of with 13 kilometers to go. Onto the Bosberg, the iconic climb of the Bosberg, 980 meters. Who's in there? 11% maximum gradient on the Bosberg.
This is a really tough climb as well, to be, just ahead of this chase group on, because it's so straight. It's a wide road, there's nowhere to hide, unlike the Muur where it kind of kicks around the bends and she can be out of sight and almost out of mind. On this one, the gap seems smaller, which gives you that extra motivation, to really try and close it. So they probably will just about have Annemiek Van Vleuten in their sights. And yeah, you can see there she's just about to crest over the top, and these 5 riders now are still pushing on to try and get back to her for the last 10 kilometres of the race.
So there's the shot, and Bujak just got on as they hit the Bosberg, and that was a cruel place to make contact with the group. You saw from that shot behind the group that you could see Annemiek Van Vleuten just ahead of the group and just cresting the summit as they run in towards the finish in Ninove. So that is the climbs done. Shifts up onto the big gears now for Annemiek Van Vleuten. If you weren't with us earlier on, we saw her at the side of the road. Chain was off. She had a chase to get back on. We were asking, will it do anything to the legs of Annemiek Van Vleuten? And the answer is no.
No, definitely not. And you can see Vleuten has clearly got probably the best legs of this chasing group. You could see that she nearly managed to stick with Van Vleuten. It was only the last couple of 100 metres where Van Vleuten really kind of got a big gap on Floortje Mackaij, but you can see she's really pushing on, and Ellen van Dijk is trying to attack here over this climb. She doesn't want to take these riders to the finish. She's going to try and go in between to catch Van Vleuten on her own.
Back to our leader, 12 kilometres to go, and the rider in that chasing group, Lizzie Banks, is perhaps we shouldn't doubt I'll be surprised that Lizzie's there. She won a stage of the Giro last year, didn't she? And she's just been year on year just taking massive leaps.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not surprised that she's there. I think after last season, that was a big surprise to everyone. She was really up there in a lot of the races. It looks like she's just being distanced here, unfortunately, as we're talking about how strong she is. And I really hope she does get back to these girls in the front, because she's worked super hard over the last few years to get into the Bigler team. I know she's really happy there, coming from Timco, where she was predominantly racing in America. It's totally different kettle of fish in terms of the racing from America to Europe. But again, she's having a phenomenal start to the season in this race.
Ellen Van Dijk goes clear as Chantal Black and Floortje Mackay just try to get back up to them. There's our two chasers. They saw Van Vleuten over the top of the climb and then back to the front, just in time trial mode here at the head of the race. Is the world champion. Still got the gilet on. You can see that world champion's jersey just poking out from under the gilet as our chasers, just chasing group, just come back together. For chasers, they really need to get organised here if they're going to stand any chance of trying to pull back Annemiek Van Vleuten.
They do, but they've got the best lady in the job to do that with Ellen Van Dijk for sure. And she's obviously, you know, really giving it all. You can see her rocking and rolling a little bit on the bike to try and get this group to start working together again. Although she has proven that she's happy to try and go off solo. So whether they will try and collaborate with her now, I'm not sure. And that's the problem when you attack. If it doesn't come off, you know, that almost gives the other riders an inclination into what your plans are, if you don't want to take riders like Chantal Black, who we know can sprint to the line.
Marta Bastianelli is the rider that was second last year, led in the chasing group, minute and 9 behind the rider on the front in the orange, Chantal Black. Great to see Ellen Van Dijk here from Trek Segafredo. There's your chasing group confirmation. Chantal van der Broek, Black as she is now, Floortje Mackay, Marta Bastianelli and Ellen Van Dijk.
So impressive to see Marta Bastianelli here again. You know, after the Muur, she can get over it. You know, these classics, she did so well in them last year. She's won Flanders before, so she's going to be motivated to try and catch Van Vleuten. She can sprint. She's probably the best sprinter out of that group. So even more so for her that she's got a chance of winning this race. If only they could catch this lady that we're seeing now. And she's just so solid on the bike, isn't she? You know, her upper body's not really moving. You can see she's putting so much power through the pedals. You can see how far she's going by everything that's moving alongside her. She's so motivated to, you know, keep this attack going with 9 kilometers to go. Still such a long way to be out solo.
Here's Floortje Mackay, your chaser. So there's still 4 riders in the group. So there's your Italian national champion, Marta Bastianelli. For Annemiek Van Vleuten at the head of the race, though, the new world champion, getting her first outings in that rainbow jersey, apart from out there in training.
Yeah, and look at the gear she's in. Probably 53.11 now, maybe 53.12. She's got a couple more sprockets to get down, which just shows the speed that she's riding. You know, looking at her cadence, she's really motoring. She's using those motorbikes in front to follow the best line in the road, to give her the best chance of, I guess, having as short a distance as possible to get to that finish line over those speed bumps there, to be as, you know, safe as possible as well, going around these slippery bends, the white lines on the road, getting over these climbs as best as possible. And again, 8.5k to go. These Ks are really starting to come down fast now.
Yeah, they're really going to have to up the pressure here if this chasing group are going to pull her back. We're not getting a time check in the top corner. We'll try and put a clock on her ourselves just to be able to keep you up to speed with what the time gaps are between our lone leader Annemiek Van Vleuten and our 4-rider chasing group. We were waiting, anticipating the attack now of the world champion, and she will repay her team. And did we get a correction? They made a mistake on the graphic. Was it from Jess Roberts that's given us a bit of a correction?
I got a message from Jess Roberts to say it's Gracie Elvin, not Grace Brown in that group. So
Sorry.
we apologise, Gracie Elvin. And actually, absolutely. Gracie Evan, we'll give her a shout out because she is phenomenal in these style of races. She is that sort of bigger, stronger rider. She knows where to be. The echelons are really her thing. So sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll always give myself a collective slap on the back of the head if I get something wrong. So yes, apologies to Gracie for that. Your chasers, this is a strong group. Defending champion Chantal Black is the rider wearing number 1. And if you go back to a race a year after you've won it, being up here in the mix for a podium when you've got the likes of Annemiek van Vleuten off the front, you want to go back and win it again, but to podium again's got to be a solid defence.
Yeah, for sure. And you could see that there's only ever been 2 riders to win this race twice. Emma Johansson, who's been on the podium 5 times, you know, it's so impressive. But Van Vleuten's got that added motivation that she's never even been on the podium, let alone win it. And I just can't believe that she's putting time into the 4 riders behind. So it's now up to 20 seconds the gap. And essentially it's 1 against 4. And these 4 riders behind her aren't no slouch, you know, they're all incredible riders in their own right. Yet Annemiek van Vleuten is essentially riding away from them.
It's phenomenal. 20 seconds is your gap. On some of the long straights, they'll still be able to see her just ahead of them. They've got to have the faith that they can still bring her back. What a power quartet that we've got here as they try to chase back. Floortje Mackay has done a phenomenal ride today. Got a little fender there, just to you don't see it very often in pro racing, do you? But maybe just on super wet days like this.
Yeah, it's interesting. It may be a sort of a sponsor thing where, you know, all the riders have to have it on, because I'm not sure it would really make a huge difference in these sorts of conditions. It's more, you know, respect, I guess, if you're riding with a big group of people. But I think we're going to get to a point now where in the last couple of kilometres that group behind know that they're not going to catch Van Vleuten, and then it will be a game of cat and mouse, because essentially there's only 2 other riders that can be on the podium. So if 2 are going to miss, and then there could be a group behind then chasing that group that could come back together. So I think we're still going to see fireworks, even if Annemiek van Vleuten does end up staying away, and that will happen in the next 4 kilometres. When the riders behind know that there's no way they're going to close that 20-second gap in 2K, and then they'll be looking at each other in terms of who will go for that podium spot. Will Ellen van Dijk?
Vleuten takes that corner, pushes the road to the limit there. Few of you asking over on the chat, can we have an Annemiek van Vleuten channel? You're here. GCN Racing is going to be the Annemiek van Vleuten channel. Thanks for joining us. If you're just getting on board, 5.5 kilometres to go, 25 seconds is the time gap. Back from our pre-race favourite, world champion Annemiek van Vleuten. Back to your chasing group as it now goes up to 30 seconds as Van Dijk leads the chasing group through that corner ahead of defending champion Chantal Black, with Floortje Mackay of Team Sunweb and Marta Bastianelli of Le BTC Ljubljana. So good to see that team up there. So out of that chasing group behind, Floortje Mackay was 10th last year. Bastianelli was 2nd. Van Vleuten was 4th, and Chantal Black the winner alone.
And look at Annemiek van Vleuten. She's putting more time into these 4 riders behind that are chasing her, with less than 5 kilometres to go now. She's got the Garmin in front of her. She can see how much power she's producing. She'll know how much power she can sustain for that length of time, and she'll be trying to hold that and push it as much as she can so she doesn't blow. So she'll know that sort of threshold power she can produce. She's getting as aero as possible to be as fast as possible, and it's clearly working for her because this gap is going up.
It is indeed. A nice close-up shot there of Annemiek van Vleuten. You can see just dipping the head, looking up. Has put in a huge winter's training. Still got the full finger gloves on. The world champions stripes on that Scott bike.
And again, this will just confirm to her that what she's done since the World Championships is, you know, paying off. It was the right thing to do. She's in good form. But another thing in terms of the Olympic year is that you don't want to peak too soon. You might find that the riders have a small break after the classic season to then be able to build into the Olympics. You if you're all guns blazing already at this stage of the year, in the first sort of race, then it's impossible to try and hold that form all year, especially into July, August, come the Olympics. So I think you'll see riders like Van Vleuten doing the classic season, clearly doing very well, but then having a break and building back up to the games sort of after that mid-season season classics is finished.
Is that potentially why Van Vleuten would say that she's not sure on the second half, because doing the Giro Rosa and going straight into the Olympics, it's going to be quite tight, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like she said in her interview, it's as much about recovery as it is training. She still has to have these recovery weeks to let her body try and absorb all of the work that she's done, because essentially when we train, we're breaking the muscles down, and it's only when we rest that they become stronger. So that is a paramount part of a rider's training plan, and something that you have to plan in. There's also other things that can happen through the racing season, illness and setbacks that you have to then factor in. You can see they're starting to look at each other now. There's a small group behind that you can just see at the back of your shot. So I think these riders have now realised that Annemiek van Vleuten is not going to be caught with now less than 3 kilometres to go.
It was just the look there of Marta Bastianelli as Ellen van Dijk looked around her, and she just kind of puffed out her cheeks and shook her head, and it was like, oh, seriously. It's a great day out when you get to see this rider in full flight like this. What a treat. Annemiek van Vleuten, 37 years old, is the world champion. You've got 2 former world champions in Chantal Blaak and Marta Bastianelli in that chasing group behind, former world time trial champion in Ellen van Dijk, the only rider as well that has ever won the Elite Women's European Time Trial Championship as well. And this rider is just putting time into them, 35 seconds with 2.3 kilometres to go. Annemiek van Vleuten, a masterclass.
Really is, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it that the gap is still going up to 35 seconds, and you've just seen she's gone past the 2 kilometres to go mark now, so only a couple more minutes of her to dig right in. Ellen van Dijk is still trying to motivate these riders. She just flicked her elbow there to try and get Floortje Mackay to come through to help her with this chase group. I would guess that Marta Bastianelli is not going to work now. She is the best sprinter out of this group, so she's probably just going to sit back and try and get second, which is the best that these 4 riders will be able to get now, with only 1.7 kilometres to go and a gap of 35 seconds to Van Vleuten, who made her move on the Muur and has stayed away ever since.
Marta Bastianelli now will be trying to make it look like she's in a world of hurt as a sprinter, just to look like she's suffering, just to try, as you do as a sprinter, try and trick everybody into believing that you're actually hurting more than you are, and you still win the sprint. Great shot here. 1.4 kilometres to go now for Annemiek van Vleuten of Mitchelton-Scott. Is in to Ninove in the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. They have changed the finish over the last few years. I've got to say, big shout. I've got to give some props to Floortje Mackay. She was, we could see she was just clinging to Annemiek van Vleuten, wasn't she? It was like a claw-like cling to try and hang on to her on the Muur.
She was gritting her teeth, and I thought at one moment when they were on almost the pavement section of the course before they turned left up towards the church, she was going to hang on, but then Annemiek van Vleuten almost put in another bout of power over the top of the church and managed to get that gap that she needed, that's ultimately just got bigger and bigger as she comes into 1 kilometres to go. She'll be having the talks through her radio, the motivation for her to keep going, but she will know that she's got a good enough gap to probably win this race. But it is bike racing, anything can happen. She still needs to get around these wet corners safely. And it's not over till the fat lady sings, but I think she's going to win.
You can hear the announcer at the finish. Annemiek van Vleuten just searching for the zip on the gilet as Marta Bastianelli starts to attack that group behind. Chantal Blaak comes up to her. As we said, she was just, and here comes Annemiek, just trying to sit up, just trying to unzip that jersey. She wants to show off the rainbow jersey, as you would expect, just sits back to sit up for that corner. She's looking for that, there she does, she manages to unzip the gilet. She wants to show off that rainbow jersey. Out of the saddle now for Annemiek Van Vleuten. This was one of the first targets of the season. The crowd's in, the finish waves to them as she gets the applause. What a start to the year. She can sit up and celebrate this one. She won the Tour of Flanders back in 2011. She said she wants more of the classics on her palmarès. Annemiek Van Vleuten, the attack on the Muur that no one had any answer to, sits up and celebrates a fantastic victory. Now the sprint starts from the group behind. Chantal Black leading out now. Marta Bastianelli, Floortje Mackay right in there. Chantal Black, defending champion, wants first. Bastianelli, though, the fastest sprinter, you would say, out of this group. The Italian champion sits down as Chantal Black. Well, now they line up round this final turn and they will see that line ahead of them. Chantal Black really going for a long sprint here, leading out for Boels-Dolmans, trying to repay the teammates, but now Bastianelli makes a move. Seated sprint from the Italian champion. Floortje Mackay wants that third spot on the podium. Bastianelli takes second, Mackay takes third, then Black, then Ellen van Dijk for just over the 40-second mark into the finish. That was a good race, wasn't it?
That was really good. It went so fast, 3 hours 34 minutes, and it flew just because there was so much going on. You know, from start to finish there was attacks, groups away, split to bits, echelon action from Sunweb, those few climbs in quick succession, and Van Vleuten, impressive. Lizzie Banks here, super ride from her. Bujak as well, coming across the line. The top 10 finish in Het Nieuwsblad, you know, you can't argue with that.
Chloe Hosking sprinting it out with Jip van den Bos here for the next placings. And Chloe Hosking leads in that group. Oudbianiek also in there. Sarah Roy, Ruth Winder. There comes Abby May, Abby May Parkinson from Lotto Soudal. She has got to be happy with that. Are you happy, Coach, today?
Yeah, big time. You know, to be finishing with the likes of Marjorie, and that does look like Gracie Elvin, so we've got it right this time. You know, she's got to be happy with it, and I'm glad to see that, you know, she's trying all the way to the line here. That's super important as well. You know, for her, that'll be a top 20 finish, and yeah, I'm very proud.
Great job. There you have it, the world champion, the rainbow jersey. What a day. We were waiting for it. She had that chase to get back in. It didn't take anything out of the legs. Might even have woken the legs up in a way, that little chase.
Just another training ride there, isn't it?
We see, but again, even if you're Annemiek Van Vleuten and you've been out there, you've done the big training camp in Colombia. She's done the training camp that she did with the men's team, and it's a great video to watch. I enjoyed watching that one. But even if you're Annemiek Van Vleuten, there's got to be those questions in the back of your mind when you start to come back into racing. In training, yeah, the numbers are there, you've done all the work, but racing's racing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think you can ever be complacent as a bike rider. You know, there's people coming through all the time, hot on your heels. So no, she has put the work in, it is paying off, but I wouldn't say, you know, she gets to a start line and thinks, well, this is just in the bag. No way.
Not at all. And you just see riders coming in all to the finish. This is the highlights. Let's take you through the story of the day. We saw Amelia Farlene, and as Dani and I said, how fast did that go? If you were with us all day, if you were with us for the whole race, thank you. Thanks for joining us here on GCN Racing. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And riders, I think, we're not quite sure of how many jerseys they needed today when they were on the start line. For the most part of the rollout, we were jackets on, jackets off.
Yeah, we were. I think even after the first 500 metres, it seems there's riders going back, taking jackets off. Then we had that downpour. Then it was super windy. So yeah, it's just a tough one. Lizzie Banks, there she is. She was wrapped up from start to finish. Obviously, that didn't cause her much harm.
She's from the tropical part of England, clearly. She's grown up where there's palm trees and sunshine, clearly, in England.
I'd love to find where they are.
There's Lotte Hentala. This is the rollout. And then when the attacks came, they started it. They rolled out in dry conditions. Very windy, very blustery for the riders. Big luck Katusha very much to the front. And again, for the second year running, it was Nicole Hanselman of Dolcini Van Eyck that went on the attack. And her team, the teammate, got up to her and went straight past. Got the nod that she could go for it. And it was Marieke van Wittenberg was the next rider to attack. She was caught. A lot of these attacks were just setting up for an eventual group. It was another one of the Dolcini team, Christina Schweinberger, that started the next move. She would be joined at the front by Femke Marcus and Micah Bogard. We had Emily Newsom of Team Tibco, who was in the gap and chasing to try and come back up to the leaders on one of the rises. Christina Schweinberger was dropped. We then went into some pretty atrocious conditions. The Dolcini Van Eyck rider was brought back as the Tibco rider, Emily Newson of the USA, got up to the front group. The gaps, though, the groups were brought back together. And it was Micah Bogard who went. Again, there was a big crash which took down the likes of Jip van den Bos. Van den Bos, though, of Boels-Dolmans would make her way back into the front group after quite a chase. Also held up the likes of Evie Kuipers there. Onto the hard hook. And the first cobblestone section of the day, Lizzie Banks, the British rider, with her teammate Marlene Reuser. There's Van den Bos, and this was really where the race started to come alive today. Christine Majerus in the orange, phenomenal ride by the champion of Luxembourg. Sunweb coming through to the front en masse. There was a crash, and this was where Annemiek van Vlueten had her issue. We saw her at the side of the road trying to put the chain back on. Her team car was delayed in the chase behind. You'll hear it now and then see it. She would have a chase to come back up to the front. That happened just as the hammer really started to go down on the front. Van Vleuten, though, was down but not out, and she would fight her way back to the front group. The rainbow jersey, the team car, is coming past her, and she would chase to get back into that leading group. All of the real serious climbs were ahead of them. They would come thick and fast, rolling the big gear. Annemiek van Vleuten just started to pick her way through the groups in front of her to get back up to the leaders. And from the leading group, it was the FDJ team that were the real big losers on the day. Majerus for Boels-Dolmans with Lonneke Uniken, and working hard for Chantal Black. As the groups split in the crosswinds. For many riders, it was a tough day in the saddle. The splits started to open, and it would really just come down to that select leading group that was just whittled down little by little at the front. Franziska Koch from Team Sunweb tried her luck at the front, but Majerus and Black were having none of it. Sarah Roy, Lorena Wiebes, Genia Bujak would also get themselves back into the leading group. It would be 21 riders that would come together at the front. Black, Van den Bos, Van Vleuten, Wyndham, Majerus, Wiebes, Korovar, Hosking, Bienik, Royce, Mackay, Zook, Banks, Bujak, Parkinson, Koch, Uniken, Van Dyke, Elvin, Bujak and Cecchini were all in there. Lauren Kitchen working on the front for FDJ Aquitaine behind. On to the Muur, the Kapelmuur, and this was where Van Vleuten made her move. Van der Bos was there, so was Mackay and Banks. Floortje Mackay did her best to try and hold it, but once Van Vleuten went, there was no answer. One glance back as Mackay fought to hold the gap as tight as possible and give this chasing group a chance to try and come back to the Mitchelton-Scott rider on the run into Ninove, but Van Vleuten crested the summit with a little over 10 seconds lead. That gap would grow and grow. The select group behind Ellen van Dijk, Marta Bastianelli, Lizzie Banks and Chantel Black, with some chasers not far behind. They did everything they could, but Van Vleuten was in the big gears and flying. The Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, one race that she didn't have on the Palmares. 5 riders chasing group, working nicely together, but they weren't able to make any inroads into the gap of the lone leader. The current world champion up against 2 former world champions in that chasing group behind. Van Vleuten focused, poised and concentrating as she hit the Bosberg. The chasing group behind on the long straight climb could see the leader ahead of them, but they were still unable to bring the gap back. The Bosberg, the final climb of the day, the summit coming with 12.8 kilometers to go. They could see Van Vleuten ahead of them, but they could not bring her back. Black, Mackay, Bastianelli, Van Dijk and Banks. The group behind would eventually get whittled down to just 4 as Van Vleuten was increasing her advantage all the way into the finish in Ninove. Onto the outskirts of the town, just 1 kilometre to go for the Mitchelton-Scott rider. Looking for that 67th victory as a professional rider and her first race out of 2020. She's done all the work in the winter. She wanted to show off the rainbow bands as you would expect as she headed in towards the finish. Marta Bastianelli, little jump from that group behind, second last year behind the rider wearing number 1 in the orange who was chasing her down. Van Vleuten successful in unzipping the gilet. Took the final couple of corners and headed in towards the crowd. She knew she had it, she knew that she could celebrate. It would be 1 corner and the swing around the left-hand curve up towards the finish line for Van Vleuten. Saw the crowd, started to celebrate, plenty of time to sit up and enjoy the moment. The classics, the real target of Annemiek van Vleuten in the early part of this season. Another phenomenal victory for Annemiek van Vleuten. The chasing group behind, Chantel Black leading out, Marta Bastianelli, Floortje Mackay and Ellen van Dijk. Making a great return for Trek Segafredo. Bastianelli, the fastest sprinter in the group, the Italian champion, but Chantel Black wanted to defend that title in the best possible way if she couldn't win it by taking 2nd spot on the podium. They pushed it to the right-hand side, right up against the barriers. Chantel Black, a long, drawn-out sprint by last year's winner, but Marta Bastianelli, a seated sprint by the LA BTC's Ljubljana rider. She took 2nd. Floortje Mackay, a great ride by her to take 3rd. But there is your winner, Annemiek van Vleuten. Brilliant day. That's such a great shot, isn't it? You could see her just battling with her zip there, couldn't you, to make sure that she could sit up and show off the rainbow jersey.
Yeah, show off the rainbow jersey, show off the...
And here she is.
Annemiek van Vleuten, gefeliciteerd met de zege. Jullie beloofden deze ochtend al vuurwerk en jullie hebben woord gehouden.
Ja, was goed. En het weer zorgde er ook nog steeds goed voor door veel wind en slecht weer. Wat eigenlijk ook zorgt voor zware omstandigheden en dat ligt mij gewoon heel goed.
Halfweg de race had je wel te kampen met pech. Heeft dat je party gespeeld? Ben je in paniek geschoten?
Nou, eigenlijk niet. Misschien heeft het wel een beetje geholpen, want op dat moment was ik super koud. En ze reden in mijn achterwiel, ze vielen achter mij en daardoor zat mijn ketting vast. Even wachten, maar gewoon, ja, het is ook een beetje ervaring dat je gewoon rustig blijft. En je kan er gewoon rustig even helpen en proberen terug te komen. En dat terugkomen heeft me wel geholpen om weer lekker warm te worden.
Je hebt ook een fantastisch cancellaretje gedaan op de muur. Was dat al het plan van morgen?
Ja, ik wilde gewoon, dat was een hele mooie kans en commit and go. En dat is niet echt een explosieve aanval, maar daarom wist ik gewoon vanaf onderaf aan gaan. En mijn ploeg stopte me perfect in positie daar onderaan de muur, dus ik had daar van tevoren geen trap te veel hoeven doen.
Een solo ook van 17 kilometer. Was je zelf zeker dat je dat ging kunnen trekken tot op de streep?
Nou, ik keek wel met een schuin oog naar mijn wattage, dat ik dacht, het zit nog wel wat power achter. Dus ik dacht, dan moeten ze wel goede huizen komen, willen ze achter mij dit samen ook doen.
One question in English. How did you experience today's race?
Oh, hard, cold, epic, really Flanders weather and with a really nice attack on the muur. It's also special.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Annemiek Van Vlueten. They got a little Cancellara attack there as well. They're saying. Our world champion. Got to be happy with that ride today. There's your top 10 in the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Annemiek Van Vlueten from Marta Bastianelli, Floortje Mackay, Chantal Black, Ellen van Dijk, Lizzie Banks, Evgenia Bujak, Chloe Hoskik, Jip van den Bos and Aude Bieni. Most of the riders, good start for everyone, pretty much everyone we would say. Maybe Lucinda Brand, one rider that we were expecting to be up there, but they've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, really happy. And, Van Vleuten, I think she basically said she had a plan to attack on the Muur, and the plan obviously paid off. 17 kilometres solo, so what a great start for her and the Mitchelton-Scott team at the beginning of the 2020 season. Marta Bastianelli was my pick, second. That's a really good sort of, I guess, comeback from last year's victory to still be on the podium. Floortje Mackay, this is the second time she's been on the podium in this race. Chantal Black, she's been up there a few times. Lizzie Banks, a great ride from her, the British rider, in such a savage, epic race.
Yeah, I mean, sixth place, Lizzie. As we said, we look at her for British fans as well, and she won that stage of the Giro Rosa last year, but the Classics is a completely different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really different, and she's obviously, really learning how to use her power, where to be in the bunch. You saw her at the front for a lot of the race, so she's obviously got the strength there as well. So I think as we get race on race in, with that experience and the different opportunities she'll have with the bigler team, I think she'll just go from strength to strength.
I'm going to check with John. I think they do the podium later on after the men's race, so there's no podium on that. So if you're wondering why we're not showing you the podium, that comes after the elite men's race. And if you want to watch that, you can see that with our colleagues over at Eurosport as well. We were just showing the best race of the day, weren't we, Dani?
Of course.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Annemiek Van Vlueten. Dani, before we go, she's just phenomenal, isn't she? Again, absolute masterclass.
Yeah, I think phenomenal is the word to use, to ride out. And that gap got bigger, 35 seconds to the 4 riders behind, 1 against 4. Super, super impressive. She puts the work in. She's been training with the guys, and it's obviously paying off.
Well, thanks to all of you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed line-to-line coverage here of Omloop Het Nieuwsblad today. Remember, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified every time we go live. More live elite women's professional racing coming this year. Thanks to Dani, Rowe, who will again be with us throughout the season, hopefully, as well. Have a great day wherever you are. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.